Chapter 5:26. Andy Zhao, let me help you inside to rest for a while. You must be tired from running here so early in the morning. After the crowd dispersed, Han Yushi asked someone to clean up the door and looked at old lady Zhao. Today's conflict was the first time in Han Yushi's life that she had encountered such a big scene. In fact, she had always been extremely nervous in her heart. In the end, she was able to resolve this matter perfectly. In addition to her adaptability and extraordinary performance, the righteous old Madame Zhao also played a role in it. There weren't many of those martyrs' widows who had bad intentions. They were just at a loss after encountering a great tragedy in their lives and were then used by a villain. At this time, with old lady Zhao as a clear example, it was easy to awaken the original kindness in their hearts. I won't sit. Fortunately, I heard the news in time today and didn't let Xianxing make a big mistake. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the face to see Wei after a few years. Old lady Zhao leaned on her walking stick and said with some heartache. At this time, she had returned from a messenger of justice to her original identity, a mother who had just lost her son. Mother, don't say that, it's all my fault. You will definitely be healthy and live a long life. Xiao Wanqing held old lady Zhao's hand and cried. Han Yushi also said softly, Andy Zhao, Sister Xianxing was just carelessly used by a villain. Don't blame her, and don't blame yourself. I still have to thank you for coming all the way here to help today. Sigh, this is what I should do. It's not much help. Old lady Zhao shook her head and said, Mrs. Li, I stayed because I have something to tell you. Don't think I'm long-winded. Of course not. Auntie, if you have something to say, just say it. This junior is all ears. Han Yushi stroked the hair in front of her forehead and said with a smile. Old lady Zhao looked to the east. Her gaze was slightly bleak. She sighed and said, Although you didn't tell me clearly, I guessed that my son had already been buried in the snake's stomach, and not even his bones were left. As for the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect, I wish I could personally go to their sect and perish together with them. As for that 7-headed giant snake, I dream of eating its flesh and drinking its blood, even in my dreams. Everyone says that Lord Zhu values friendship. This time, the Imperial Court has sent a large number of troops to attack Snake Spirit Mountain. Based on Lord Zhu's usual behavior, he will definitely avenge my son and the soldiers who died. However, I really don't want to let more good men follow in my son's footsteps because of revenge. It's enough for this old woman to have to see her own child die before her own. I hope that Lord Zhu won't let more people die because of revenge. If that's the case, even if we get our revenge, I won't be able to feel at ease for the rest of my life. What kind of mother was she to be able to say such deep and moving words? Only those who truly had great love and kindness in their hearts would be able to consider things so thoroughly. This was not a small love for a family, but a great love for the whole world. When Han Yushi heard this, her heart was filled with mixed feelings. Her eyes were slightly moist. Taking a deep breath, Han Yushi held back the tears that were about to burst out of her eyes and comforted her. Auntie Zhao, you don't have to worry too much. My husband has already thought about what you just said. Right now, he is thinking of a way to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect with the smallest price to avenge Big Brother Zhao and the soldiers who died. You just have to wait at home with peace of mind. Old Madame Zhao nodded her head in relief and said, Good. I was thinking too much. It's good that Lord Zhu can think of this. Madame Li, this old woman will take her leave first. And Annie Zhao, take care. Sister Wanqing, you should come over often in the future. And okay. Thank you, Madame Zhu. Yushi, you handled today's matter very well. Not only did you not let those who wanted to smear Xian Er's reputation succeed, but you also let Xian Er's reputation among the common people rise to a higher level. Xian Er is really lucky to have married you. After the farce ended, Han Yushi was about to return to her room to tell her parents-in-law that she was safe, who knew that the old couple had been hiding behind the door and secretly observing. Seeing Han Yushi enter the courtyard, Madame Li held her hand and said with a smile, Mother, you're too kind. Actually, I I was also very nervous just now. Han Yushi was happy in her heart, but she said modestly, no matter what, this is the best result. Facts have proven that can't leave you. Huh? Li Jingma stroked his beard with relief and laughed. Unlike Madame Li Jingma had been in the business world for decades and had seen countless people. He just saw a trace of shrewdness and experience in Han Yushi's way of handling things. She could handle this kind of situation so well for the first time. He felt that in the future, he could completely be a shopkeeper with his wife because his son and daughter-in-law, one outside the family and one inside the family, could take charge of things independently. Young madam looked so awe-inspiring just now. Jiang Cuihua is such an unruly shrew. Didn't she have to obediently beg for mercy when she saw young madam? Xiaohe came over to join in the fun with a smile. Ha ha ha. The whole family couldn't help but laugh heartily. While they were happy, the mysterious man in the alley opposite the Li residence had a constipated expression. Bastard. Trash. This Jiang Cuihua is really a stupid woman. She could even fail in such a good situation. Why would I find such a trash? The mysterious man kicked over a jar placed by someone by the roadside and cursed loudly. After venting for a long time, his mood finally calmed down a little. He muttered, "Forget it. Since this plan didn't work, I can only wait until the day after tomorrow to negotiate with the other families. Fortunately, that Jiang Cuihua doesn't know my true identity. Otherwise, wouldn't I have gone for wool and come home shorn this time? What bad luck." After saying that, he flicked his sleeves and left. Sigh. Which heartless bastard who gave birth to a son without PIs kicked over the pot that I had just washed. Come out. Come out if you have the guts. See if I don't crush you to death. As soon as the mysterious man left, a fat woman with a waist of 3 feet came out from the side courtyard. When she saw the jar that had been knocked over on the ground, she was instantly furious and raised her voice to curse loudly. The mysterious man, who had turned into another alley, heard the faint curses coming from behind him. He couldn't help but frown and say, "Which family's stupid woman is actually so shrewish? She's simply ruining the refined culture. However, she shouldn't be scolding me." The mysterious man felt good about himself and shook his head and continued to walk forward. Chapter 527. Your Imperial Highness. Why have you come? Quickly take a seat. Not long after the farce ended, Han Yushi heard a servant report that Princess Changle had arrived. She promptly went out to welcome her. As for Li Jingma and Madame Li, the old couple knew that their son had some friendship with the princes and princesses. Since Changle had come to the Li residence, she was definitely not looking for them. As a result, they returned to the east courtyard. "Big Sister Yushi, are you all right? Changle heard that someone was causing trouble at your residence. However, Imperial Father and Big Brother Crown Prince are still attending morning court. So I came over myself." After not seeing her for a month, Changle's complexion was much better than before. At this moment, she walked over and spoke with concern. Seeing that the concern on Changle's face was genuine, Han Yushi couldn't help but feel warmth in her heart. Smiling slightly, she replied, I'm fine. Those people have already dispersed. Many thanks for your Imperial Highness concern. It's good that you're fine. Also, Big Sister Yushi, how many times have I told you? You could just call me Changle. Don't call me your Imperial Highness all the time. That's too estranged. Ah, that's right. Where's Big Brother Xiaoxian? After such a big incident, how come I don't see him? Changle could not help but ask as she sat on the Li residence's special wooden armchair and looked around. She was still considered a half-grown child. Sitting on this large and wide chair meant for adults, her legs were a little short, and her toes could barely touch the floor. Her petite appearance made her look exceptionally cute. Han Yushi was startled. She replied, "My husband wasn't at home yesterday. Right now, he should be at the workshop. He said that he wanted to make something to deal with the 7 cultivators of true virtue." Wow, then it seems that the 7 cultivators of true virtue is going to be out of luck this time. Every time Big Brother Xiaoxian says that he wants to make something, he always makes something that none of us can imagine. Changle laughed happily. Afterwards, she blinked her large, beautiful eyes and asked, "Big sister Yushi, did big brother Xiaoxian say when he would finish? When the time comes, Changle wants to see what it is." Han Yushi smiled and replied, "He didn't say when. He only said that he should be able to make it within 3 days. Changle, if you want to know, you can ask him when he returns." "Oh." Changle nodded rather regretfully, and then she said, "Then big sister Yushi, quickly tell Changle how those people were sent away." Sister Yushi, are you okay?" At this moment, a clear female voice came from outside. The two people in the house looked out and saw a girl in a red dress with delicate features and mischievous eyes. It was Liu, the girl who sold her body to the Tang daily and worked to pay off her debts. "Ah, is little Fishy here?" During the wedding, little Fishy had also attended the wedding. Li Zixuan had even told Han Yushi about the interesting things that happened when they first met Liu. Therefore, Han Yushi definitely knew Liu. "Sister Yushi, you're fine." "Hee, that's great. When I came out to buy buns this morning, I heard that a group of peasant women came here to cause trouble. I was so scared that I didn't even eat my buns and ran over. Luckily, nothing happened. Otherwise, boss." Big sister Yushi, this is..." Little Fishy skipped over. Pulling on Han Yushi and sizing her up, she chattered incessantly. Only then did she notice Changle at the side. She couldn't help but stare blankly and ask, "Ah, little Fishy, this is Princess Changle." Han Yushi reacted and promptly introduced, "Changle, this is Liu. We all call her little Fishy. She can be considered half a student of my husband's." "Ah." Liu pays respects to your highness the princess." Little Fishy was startled. She didn't expect that the little girl, who was about the same age as her, was actually a princess. She promptly stepped forward and paid her respects. However, Changle did not immediately ask Liu to dispense with the formalities. Her eyes stared unblinkingly at Liu's face, lost in thought. Actually, ever since Liu had entered the room, Changle's eyes had never left Liu's face. Don't misunderstand. Our Princess Changle is definitely not a lesbian. Cough, cough. Changle? After waiting for a long time and seeing no reaction from Changle, not only did Liu feel that something was wrong, but Han Yushi also saw that something was wrong. She couldn't help but cough dryly and remind Changle. Oh. Changle finally awoke from her reverie. Somewhat flustered, she said, "Dispense with the formalities. Dispense with the formalities. Since you are Big Brother Xiaoshuan's student, there is no need to be overly courteous. Speaking of which, you and Big Brother Qingke can be considered half of the same school." Since your highness says so, then I won't be courteous." Liu had an easygoing personality. Hearing Changle's words, she promptly straightened her body. Giggling, she said, "Princess, the Qingke you spoke of, is it Prince Li Tai of Wei? I have seen him before. He is a very formidable person." Changle asked curiously, "Oh, you have seen Big Brother Qingke?" Little Fishy proudly replied, "Of course. Speaking of which, among the three of you, I have seen the Crown Prince and Prince Wei at the workshop previously, but I have not seen you." When Changle heard that, a trace of pitifulness flashed across her eyes. She said, "Since you are often at the workshop, then it is not strange that you have seen Big Brother Qingke and Big Brother Crown Prince. It is just that, as a princess, it is not as convenient for me to leave the palace as it is for them. That is why you have not seen me." Little Fishy was an exquisite person. How could she not hear the sadness in her words? She quickly stopped smiling and said regretfully, "Oh, that is true, but you are the princess of Tang Empire, the apple of His Majesty's eye. Who knows how many people envy you?" Envy? Changle muttered to herself. Then, she shook her head and forced a smile. "Let's not talk about this. Little Fishy, you just said that Big Brother Qingke is a formidable person. How is he formidable? Other than reading her sister's novels, Changle really couldn't think of how her brother was formidable. Well, Little Fishy rubbed her chin and said with a smile, "Prince Wei is a prince, but he is still diligent and eager to learn. I heard that his mathematics results are one of the best in the school of mathematics. He is comparable to Meng Wenhao. Oh, Meng Wenhao is a good brother of mine. He is always the first in the school of mathematics. When Changle saw Li Yu's face full of vigor when she said that Meng Wenhao was her good brother, she couldn't help but feel envious. She nodded in disappointment and said, "Oh, so that is the case. But he is not formidable. Changle heard from my father that big brother Qin has been extremely intelligent since he was young. It is reasonable that he can do this." When little Fishy heard that, her eyes widened. She said unhappily, "How is this not formidable? Prince Wei is from a better family than us, but he is more hard-working than us ordinary people. This is very formidable." Chapter 528. Li Yu had been in Tang Daily's editorial department for a long time, and her words were more humorous than before. Changle, who had been in the palace for a long time, was amused and laughed. "Little Fishy, what you said is really interesting. I must tell brother Qin about this, and tell him not to work so hard." Little Fishy said happily, "Princess, you should tell Prince Wei about this. Otherwise, ordinary people like us will feel very pressured when we see him working so hard despite his good background." Changle pursed her lips and smiled. She shook her head and didn't deny it. However, she was secretly surprised because she had only spoken a few words with Li Yu, and she felt that some of the depression in her heart had been resolved. This was really a person who could bring joy to the people around her. "Little Fishy, what do you do at the workshop?" Changle was suddenly very curious about this little girl who was the same age as her. "Me, I write news for Tang Daily in the workshop." Little Fishy counted with her fingers and said embarrassedly, "Unlike you or Prince Wei, my parents passed away early, and I have to earn money to support myself." Changle was stunned. She didn't expect this weird and lively little girl in front of her to have such an unfortunate experience. She quickly apologized. "Little Fishy, I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose." Little Fishy waved her hand and interrupted her. Princess, you don't have to apologize. It's actually nothing. Now, other than thinking about my parents occasionally, I'm living quite well. Of course, it's all thanks to my boss for taking me in back then." "Boss?" Changle was puzzled. "I heard you mention your boss just now. Who is this boss?" "My boss is Li Zixuan. Isn't the Tang Daily editorial department where I'm working now all his?" Li Yu had never treated herself as an outsider. When she heard Changle's question, she directly called Li Zixuan by his name and answered. Changle was enlightened. She said in surprise, "So it's Brother Xiaoxian." "Sigh. Little Fishy, I seem to remember now. I saw several news articles on Tang Daily, and the name on them was Little Fishy. Is it really you?" Originally, she only came to see Han Yushi, but she met a princess. Moreover, this princess was her own reader. Li Yu shouted excitedly, Yes, it's me. Princess, do you also read Tang Daily?" Changle smiled and said, "Look, every day. My father is watching too." "Wow, that's great. Doesn't that mean I'm very famous?" When Little Fishy heard that even Li Air read Tang Daily, she couldn't help but jump up in joy. She quickly asked, "Then, Princess, has His Majesty ever mentioned me?" I didn't," Changle said with an awkward expression. Little Fishy suddenly turned into a dumbfounded fish. "Little Fishy, you really dare to think. His Majesty is busy every day. Even if he saw the news you wrote, he wouldn't be so free to remember your name." Han Yushi called for a servant to come in and refill the tea, but she was amused by Little Fishy's confused expression. She couldn't help but say, "Oh." Little Fishy pouted gloomily. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of the servant girl pouring tea. She smiled mischievously and said, "Sister Yushi, I don't want to drink tea. Can you change it to iced tea and tenderness? It's best to use your family's patterned glaze cup." The corner of Han Yushi's mouth couldn't help but twitch. How could there be such a guest? She wanted to say that the tea was for Changle, not for her, but she felt that it would be too hurtful to say this. She could only nod and say, "Okay, I'll get someone to change it for you." "Changle, do you want to change it?" Changle hesitated for a moment, and then for some reason, she actually said, "I'll change it too." Thank you, Sister Yushi. It's okay. Han Yushi chuckled and then ordered someone to change the tea to tenderness. Hee hee. Great minds think alike. How can this tea taste better than tenderness? Liu said with a grin. Changle felt that she was a little rude when she said that. But now that she heard Liu's shameless words, she suddenly felt that what she said just now was nothing. Han Yushi tapped little Fishy's forehead dotingly and said, You only dare to talk nonsense here. Hee hee. Isn't that because Sister Yushi and the boss are kind? Little Fishy was very perceptive and flattered her. In a short while, the servants brought over the tenderness and glazed cups. When the pink wine flowed into the wave-patterned glazed cups, Changle finally understood why Liu specially emphasized that the wine had to be filled with patterned glazed cups. The sparkling pink wine and wine cup in front of her was simply a work of art given by the heavens. It was too beautiful. How is it? Isn't it beautiful? Liu came over and asked proudly. Then, without waiting for Changle to answer, she sighed and said, You can only enjoy this at the boss's place. Currently, Chitu Pavilion doesn't have such patterned glazed cups. Changle nodded with a dazed expression. Liu smiled and said, Sister Yushi is really lucky to be married to the boss. Not only does the boss treat people well, but you can also often enjoy things that you can't elsewhere. Now, all the women in Chang and City are envious of you. Han Yushi felt sweet in her heart, but she scolded, Go away. Little girl, how old are you? Do you know what is lucky and what is not? Oh, why don't I know? As a reporter for Tang Daily, I know the topics and opinions of the people in Chang and City like the back of my hand. It was the first time Changle heard the term reporter. She felt that it was a novelty, so she asked, Little Fishy, what is a reporter, and how did you learn to write the news? Han Yushi covered her mouth and laughed. Reporters write the news based on the culture of the people. As for how she learned to write the news, it started when she first arrived in Chang and Little Fishy jumped and said, Sister Yushi, don't say it. It's so ugly. Changle became more and more curious and asked, Sister Yushi, what happened at that time? At that time, when she just arrived in Chang, and she met a silly big guy who wanted to rob her. It was said that 3 women made a scene. The 3 of them chatted until it was close to noon. It was the palace maid that Changle brought over who reminded her. Otherwise, Changle would have forgotten the time. When they parted, Changle still wanted to continue. She really looked forward to Little Fishy's free and surprising life. Of course, the happiness that Little Fishy had from inside out also left a deep impression on her. Little Fishy, have we met before? After sitting in the pink Don't Touch Me that Lisa Schwan had specially customized, Changle finally asked the curiosity in her heart. Little Fishy said blankly, No? Princess, why do you ask? Changle shook her head and said, It's nothing. I just feel that you are very familiar. Forget it. Then let's part here. I will find you again when I leave the palace. Okay, you're always welcome. Changle smiled and put down the curtain. The carriage gradually drove out of Yongla Lane and disappeared from Han Yushi and Little Fishy's sight. Chapter 529. Sister Yushi, I almost forgot about the important matter. I came here today not only to see you, but also to interview you. After bidding farewell to Changle reluctantly, Little Fishy patted her head and suddenly shouted. Han Yushi frowned and asked in puzzlement, Interview? Interview what? Interview you. Sister Yushi, you alone made so many troublemaking women return empty-handed today. How amazing are you? I've even thought of the title for you. Yes, it's called The Widow of a Meritorious Official Making Trouble. The county man's wife retreating with wisdom. How is it, Sister Yushi? At this point, Little Fishy clapped her hands excitedly. She looked at Han Yushi eagerly, hoping to get approval from the other party. Han Yushi rolled her eyes in annoyance and said, Nothing much. I'm a woman. How can I show my face in Tang Daily? Besides, although there are many people here today, it's far from 1,000 people. Hearing that, Little Fishy hurriedly came over and grabbed Han Yushi's arm. She said, Sister Yushi, what's wrong with women? Can't women show their faces in public? I think the boss definitely doesn't think like you. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taught me how to write news back then. In the end, he even arranged for me to work in the editorial department. I think the boss won't care about these things. There's more. What I said just now was just the headline of the news. The headline. Naturally, it has to be exaggerated. That's what the boss taught me back then. Besides, when the people who read the newspaper see the content, who will care whether it's 1,000 people or 100 people? Han Yushi pulled her arm out and said in amusement, "Little fishy, you're not old, but you're full of fallacies. Also, you keep talking about the boss. If Xiao Xian knows that someone actually admires him so much, he will be overjoyed." Little fishy raised her chin and said proudly, "Of course, I'm going to inherit the boss's mantle." Sigh. Sister Yushi, don't interrupt. Do you agree or not? Think about it. Today, those commoners came to make trouble for no reason. There must be someone behind them. If there's a first time, there will be a second time. If I write about it on the news tomorrow, no one will be willing to do such things. It will also reduce a lot of trouble for you and the boss, right? It had to be said that this little girl was quite good at bewitching people. When Han Yushi heard this, her heart palpitated. She hesitated and said, Okay. However, those women were only confused for a moment after experiencing the pain of losing their husbands. Their minds were bewitched by despicable people. They don't have any bad intentions. Little you, when you write the news, don't be too harsh with your words. They're also a group of pitiful people. It's not good to hurt their hearts. Hee hee. Good. This month's bonus was settled again. Huh. Hearing this, little fishy got carried away and said something that she shouldn't have said. Han Yushi widened her eyes and reached out to pinch Li Yu's beautiful face. She said angrily, "Okay, that's your real goal, isn't it? Little girl, you're even scheming against me. Watch how I'll deal with you." Big sister Yushi, it's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Ouch. Let go of me first. I'm just trying to earn more money to pay off the debt I owed to my boss. Heroine, please spare my life. This little sister was wrong. Wrong? What? Such a thing actually happened? Why didn't you report to us earlier? Eastern Palace, Chengxian Hall. Li Chengxian pointed at an old eunuch at the bottom of the stairs and said angrily, "Your Imperial Highness, please calm down. Previously, you were still in morning court. That's why I had eunuch in wait here for you to return. If you want to blame someone, blame Yin." An exceptionally beautiful palace maid came over and bowed. Sigh. Forget it. Then what was the final result? Li Chengxian waved his hand and said helplessly, "Replying to your Imperial Highness, it was daunting but not dangerous. When this old servant returned, that group of wicked women had already been persuaded to leave by the wife of County Magistrate Li. You need not worry. Moreover, it is said that Princess Changle has already paid a visit. Madam, Li was not offended." The old eunuch wiped his sweat and promptly replied. Li Chengxian breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Phew, that's good. Speaking of which, little sister Changle really cares about the matters of little Xian's family. How about this? Us will also pay a visit to little Xian's family." Yin stammered for a long time before stammering, "Your Imperial Highness, I'm afraid that your Imperial Highness's actions are inappropriate." Li Chengxian frowned and said unhappily, "What's inappropriate? Your Imperial Highness may not know, but County Magistrate Li has not been at home these past few days. Right now, only his wife is in charge of the Li estate. If your Imperial Highness were to go now, it would be difficult to guarantee that there won't be vile people gossiping behind your back." Li Chengxian was furious. "Scoundrel! Acting alone is righteous and sitting upright. Why should I fear others gossiping?" Yin shrunk her neck and persisted, "Your Imperial Highness may not fear these things, but there are some things that you should pay attention to. This servant is doing this for your own good." Li Chengxian was immediately depressed. He also knew that Yin Er's words were reasonable. As the crown prince, he knew this better than anyone else. After cursing these annoying etiquette twice in his heart, Li Chengxian finally waved his hand and said, All right, that's fine. Yin go to the storeroom and prepare some gifts. Go to little Xian's family on my behalf. Yes, Your Imperial Highness. Yin hurriedly accepted the order as if she had been granted amnesty. In the hall, Li Chengxian thought for a while and then asked, Yin just said that little Xian hasn't been at home these past few days. Did he go to Snake Spirit Mountain again? The old eunuch bowed and replied, Your Imperial Highness, Lord Zhu isn't in the army. It's said that he's in the workshop of the Strange Taste Pavilion. Workshop? Li Chengxian was puzzled. Imperial Father sent 6,000 soldiers to surround Snake Spirit Mountain 2 days ago. At that time, little Xian said that he had a way to deal with the 7 cultivator sect alone. I thought he was in the army. Why is he in the workshop? This old servant doesn't know. Li Chengxian shook his head and said, It's fine. Fortunately, I have nothing to do in the afternoon. I'll go to the workshop to see what little Xian is up to. Speaking of this, he actually had to thank Li Zishuan. Ever since Li Tai became addicted to mathematics, he rarely paid attention to the imperial palace. Now that the little fatty had left Chong and City to experience life at the Cloud Mountain construction site, Li Chengxian didn't have to worry about competing with Li Tai for favor anymore. Now, he only needed to listen to the morning court and deal with the government affairs that Li Pei sent him. He could be considered to be free and unfettered. Yes, this old servant will arrange a carriage for your Imperial Highness. Chapter 530. Oh, Li Zishuan married a good wife. She knows when to advance and retreat, uses both the carrot and the stick, and handles it with ease. This girl actually turned a very unfavorable situation for Li Zishuan around. Amazing. Amazing. Ha! Li Zheng Palace, Lier, who was freeloading at Empress Zhongxuan's place, had obviously heard about the farce in front of the Li residence today. Empress Zhongxun smiled and said, Haha, who said it wasn't? Previously, when Xiaoxian married Han Yushi, many people felt that their family background was not right. Although there was news that Han Yushi was Han Qinhu's great-granddaughter and Du Daoling's granddaughter, many people still felt that this girl was not worthy of Xiaoxian. Now, it seems that this girl is better than many young ladies from rich families. The situation that Zhongxun said was not groundless because whether it was Han Qinhu or Du Daoling, they were now just fleeting clouds. They only represented the glory of the past and could not let Han Yushi escape the fact that she was born a peasant girl. A dignified county man who founded the country married a peasant girl. In this era where status and family background were valued, it was inevitable that people would gossip. Previously, Li Zishuan held a grand wedding for Han Yushi that caused a sensation in Chong, and, as well as his meticulous care for Han Yushi after marriage, made Han Yushi feel happy and sweet at the same time. She also felt immense pressure. Therefore, she did not slack off after marriage and kept learning from Mrs. Li. She just wanted to become a woman worthy of Li Zishuan's love. That was all. Sometimes, Li Zishuan could not help but feel embarrassed when he saw her diligence. Of course, there was a reward for effort. If it had been a few months ago, Han Yushi definitely would not have been able to handle this sudden incident on the spot. I didn't expect Li Zishuan, this brat, to be so good at judging people. But Zhao Siwei's mother is also very important. She deserves a reward. Lier saw things very accurately and got to the crux of the matter in one sentence. However, the first half of his sentence was wrong. When Li Zishuan married his wife back then, he did not consider whether the girl was of equal status or whether she was capable or not. He only pursued congenial feelings. Indeed, if it wasn't for that old lady's righteousness, that girl from the Han family would have to go through a lot of trouble. But Xiaoxian is too generous. He took out more than 100,000 strings of cash, just like that. Did he tell your majesty before? Empress Zhongxun asked with a frown. Lier nodded his head and recalled. He did mention it. Yesterday, this brat asked someone to hand over a booklet. The booklet mentioned that he wanted to pay for the compensation to the families of the 215 soldiers, but we have not approved it yet. But this kid definitely didn't expect that those people would take the initiative to ask for money before he even gave them money, right? Li Zishuan was right. This was something that Li Zishuan had not expected. If he had been present today, he definitely would not have mentioned the 100,000 strings of cash. As someone who had transmigrated from modern society, he hated things like moral kidnapping the most. Because, strictly speaking, he didn't owe those people money at all. If he gave it, it was out of sympathy. If he didn't give it, it was only right. No one could force him to give money that he shouldn't have. Emperor Zhongsun thought for a while and suddenly said, "Your Majesty, it is said that the reason why these women went to the Li residence to cause trouble was mainly because they were instigated by someone called Jiang Tsawa. I feel that this person's intentions are definitely not simple." Oomph. Of course it's not simple. I'm afraid that some people don't like that brat recently. How dare you do such a thing right under my nose? How dare you? Li Er could obviously see this kind of problem that could be figured out with his, but he almost instantly saw through the intentions of the person behind the scenes and couldn't help but snort coldly. What? I've only been away for a few days, and so many big things have happened in Chang'an. Duke Lu's residence. Chung Chumo grabbed the food in his bowl and shouted with his cheeks puffed up. In the past few days, this guy had gone hunting with Li Huairen, Yu Qi Baolin, and a bunch of other second-generation generals in Zhongnan Mountain. He had just returned near noon today. During lunch, this guy heard Cheng Yaojin talk about what had happened in the past 2 days and immediately exploded. "Eat, eat, eat. What are you shouting for?" Cheng Yaojin knocked on the bowl and said angrily. Cheng Chumo slammed the bowl and chopsticks on the table and said unhappily, "No, Dad, how can I eat? My brother is being bullied, and my brother's wife is being harassed. Tell me, how can I still eat?" "Eat, Madam Chung glared at this bastard son and said faintly, but the fierce look on her face disappeared in a flash. Cheng Chumo immediately withered. He looked at his father, but Cheng Yaojin only cared about eating and didn't care about him at all. He had no choice but to sit down again. But at this moment, looking at the food in front of him, he no longer had any appetite. "No." After a few seconds, Cheng Chumo stood up again. He stretched his neck and said, "Dad, Mom, I have to go to Snake Spirit Mountain and take a look. Also, Butler Liang, bring some gifts in the afternoon and visit Uncle Li and Aunt Li." After that, he didn't wait for Madam Chung and Madam Chung to say anything and directly went out. Hey, wait, finish eating before you leave." Madam Chung reached out to stop him, but couldn't. She could only roll her eyes at Cheng Yaojin and complain, "Humph, look at the good son you taught. He's as impatient as you all day. Chuyang, don't learn from your brother." "Oh." Cheng Chuyang, who was at the side, grunted sullenly. Cheng Yaojin was unhappy. He glared and said, "So what if he's like me? If my son doesn't look like me, does he have to look like old Wang next door? What the F***CK is this?" When Madam Chung heard that, she angrily threw the chopsticks in her hand at him and said, "What nonsense are you saying? How can you say such things so carelessly?" Cheng Yaojin tilted his head to avoid the hidden weapon and laughed dryly. He knew that he was in the wrong and didn't dare to quibble. He buried his head and continued to eat. Cough, cough. "Madam, what about the Li residence?" Butler Liang wiped the sweat on his forehead and said hesitantly. Obviously, he knew who was in charge at this moment, so he directly asked Madam Chung instead of Cheng Yaojin. "You don't have to go. I'll go personally in the afternoon." Madam Chung thought for a while and said lightly, putting everything else aside, her relationship with Li Zishuan's mother was quite good. "Yes, madam." Butler Liang heaved a sigh of relief and cupped his hands. Chapter 531. Afternoon. The Li residence was very lively. Carriages came one after another. There were carriages from the Chung residence, the Qin residence, the Yuchi residence, the Nyo residence, and the Li residence. What shocked the passers-by the most was that someone from the East Palace also came. Although it was only a palace maid, the meaning behind it was very shocking. This was the social network Li Zishuan operated. Today, he was no longer the young boy who could only rely on his parents when he first arrived in Chang. Now, whoever wanted to touch him would have to consider whether they could afford to offend the hidden forces behind him. Today, The matriarchs of both the Qin and Cheng manors had personally come. This caused everyone to be secretly shocked. Those who participated in the disturbance in the morning couldn't help but feel their hearts tremble. On one hand, they regretted listening to the rumors and causing trouble, but on the other hand, they were glad that they declined the compensation from the Li family. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the face to see anyone in the future. Balin, are you going or not? Yes. Yes. Huh. Good. Good, brother. This bullshit 7 cultivators of true virtue bullied little Xian. Let's go and kill them all. Yes, yes. Kill. Kill them all. Obviously, Cheng Chumo didn't forget to find a companion when he went out to cause trouble. This guy came to Buzheng Fong and tricked Yuchi Balin. Bah! Kill your head. Cheng Chumo, you stinking brat. You came to kidnap my family's Balin again. This time, when we went to Mount Zhongnan, you all came back fine. Why did my family's Balin have a few marks on his face? At this time, Yuchi Jingda came out of nowhere and scolded Cheng Chumo. After scolding, he strode forward and wanted to catch Cheng Chumo. As the saying goes, if you can't beat the old, what's wrong with bullying the young? What's more, this little brat Cheng Chumo is as cheap as his father. He really needs to be taught a lesson. Hey, Balin, run. Cheng Chumo was as slippery as a loach. How could he let Yuchi Jingda catch him? When Yuchi Jingda was still 3 feet away, Cheng Chumo could already tell that something was wrong and scampered off. However, he didn't forget the mission he came here for today. As he ran, he yelled at the back. Oh, wait for me, ugly bull. Yuchi Balin hurriedly followed after him. Sigh, Balin, don't go. Even little Xian can't beat you. What do you do there? Yuchi Jingda was so anxious that he stomped his feet. In the end, the two of them ran further and further away, and very soon, their figures disappeared. The only thing left in the air was Cheng Chumo's shouting, Uncle Yuchi, don't worry, we'll be back soon. Yuchi Jingda almost vomited blood. He yelled at the direction Cheng Chumo disappeared. Cheng Chumo, you better watch yourself. If Baolin gets hurt, I'll kill my way to your Cheng family. After yelling, Yuchi Jingda sighed softly, somewhat distressed. Sigh, how'd I give birth to such a stupid son? On the other side, Li Chengqian was a man of his word. After lunch, he took a car to the workshop. Nowadays, sedan chairs were no longer popular among some of the rich families in Chang'an City. That thing was swaying and slow, and it was also very stuffy. How could it compare to the speed, coolness, and comfort of the strange interest pavilion's Don't Touch Me? Although the production of Don't Touch Me was still very low, and the market was also very small, the rich had their own solutions. There was always a way. If 1,000 strings of cash couldn't buy it, then 2,000 strings of cash. If 2,000 strings of cash didn't work, then 3,000 strings of cash. As long as you had money, you wouldn't have to worry about not being able to buy a car. The black market, or rather, the scalper gang, existed in any era. Once he reached the entrance of the workshop, Li Chengqian called over a Wu Ho who was guarding the workshop and asked, Where is Li Zishuan? When Li Zishuan assigned Pang Feiji's team of Wu Ho to Li Zishuan as his personal guards, the Right Marquis household sent another team of Wu Ho to be responsible for the safety of the Strange Interest Pavilion workshop and the two sides of the Strange Interest culture. Replying to Your Highness, Lord Zhu. Lord Zhu is at the Drunken Wind Pavilion. That Wu Ho had a difficult expression as he stammered out a reply. All right, I understand, you can leave. Li Chengqian didn't notice the strange expression on that Wu Ho's face. After saying that, he walked in by himself. He had been to the Drunken Wind Pavilion before, so he didn't need anyone to lead the way. Besides, that Wu Ho stretched out his hand, wanting to say something, but in the end, he didn't dare to say anything. I want to see what you're doing hiding in the workshop during this big battle. Looking at the Drunken Wind Pavilion not far away, Li Chengqian thought curiously. Greetings, Your Highness. Li Chengqian had been to the workshop more than once. Seeing his arrival, the two workshop servants at the entrance of the Drunken Wind Pavilion hurriedly bowed and greeted him. Dispense with the formalities. Is Li Zishuan inside? Li Chengqian didn't expect that there would be two gatekeepers here, so he asked in passing. Your Highness, Lord Zhu is inside. Song Xiaoxi cupped his fists and replied. That's good. Li Chengxian nodded in satisfaction and was about to walk in. Your Highness, please wait. Song Xiaoxi gritted his teeth and hurriedly flashed in front of Li Chengxian. He stopped him and said, Forgive me, Your Highness, but you can't go in. Lord Zhu had instructed me earlier that no one is allowed to enter this courtyard for the next 3 days. Lord Zhu's meals can only be delivered to the door for these 2 days. Li Chengxian was a little displeased. Even I can't go in? Plop. Song Xiaoxi dragged his other companion and knelt on the ground. He said, I don't dare to stop Your Highness, but I don't dare to disobey Lord Zhu's orders either. Your Highness, if you insist on going in, you can step on my body to go in. With that, he hit his head on the ground and prostrated himself on the ground. Li Chengxian said angrily, Bastard, are you threatening me? At the end of the day, this child was also a person above everyone else. He could be a little patient with his friends, but not with people like Song Xiaoxi who had nothing to do with him. Your Highness, please forgive me. I definitely didn't mean that. Song Xiaoxi hurriedly cowed out. Li Chengxian said indignantly, Humph. Whether you mean it or not, I still want to go in and take a look. With that, he planned to go around the person in front of him and go in directly. Boom! At that moment, a loud bang suddenly exploded in the Drunken Wind Pavilion. Li Chengxian could feel a huge wave of heat coming from outside the courtyard, and he could even feel the ground trembling. Just as Li Chengxian was about to shout, the Earth Dragon is here. Loud laughter came from inside. Wow! I did it! I finally did it! Li Chengxian recognized the identity of that voice and seemed to understand something. He wiped his sweat and said glumly, All right, as you wish. I won't go in anymore. With that, he ran off as if there was oil on the soles of his feet. This place is really too dangerous. Li Chengxian sighed in his heart. Chapter 532. Chonyo Baolin. At the foot of Snake Spirit Mountain. As usual, Niu Jinda was patrolling the camp with his guards. Suddenly, he heard a commotion outside the gate of the camp. He couldn't help but frown. He had been in the army for many years, and he had always been strict with his troops. He had never seen a situation where he had to obey military discipline. With anger in his heart, Niu Jinda arrived at the gate of the camp and saw Cheng Chumo arguing with the guards, as well as Yuchi Baolin behind Cheng Chumo. Uncle Niu, it's me. Hurry up and tell this bastard to let us in. When Cheng Chumo saw Niu Jinda, he quickly waved his hands excitedly. This is the military camp. Chonyo, what are you doing here? Niu Jinda's expression didn't improve, and he was still very serious. Ahem. Uncle Niu, that 7 cultivators sect bullied Xiaoxian. As his brothers, of course we're here to help him vent his anger. Don't worry, we're here to help, not to cause trouble. Cheng Chumo had no choice but to suck up to Niu. Niu Jinda secretly rolled his eyes and asked, Do Jiji and Jinda know that you're here? Cheng Chumo and Yuchi Jinda replied in unison. We know. Seeing that the two of them were solemn and didn't look like they were lying, Niu Jinda could only believe them. He waved his hand and motioned for the guards to let them in. Then he said, Come in. Someone will arrange a tent for you later, but this old man will say the ugly words first. The army has its own rules. Don't break the rules and make things difficult for this old man. Cheng Chumo nodded repeatedly and said, We know. Don't worry, Uncle Niu. We definitely won't cause trouble for you. Yes. We're here to help Xiaoxian get revenge, not to cause trouble. Yuchi Baolin scratched his head and chuckled. Niu Jindao was too lazy to talk nonsense. He waved his hand and continued patrolling the camp. F*CK. So Xiaoxian isn't in the camp. In the end, we came here for nothing. After successfully sneaking into the camp, Cheng Chumo hooked up with a few soldiers of the right way. After a few words, he figured out the current situation in the camp. When he realized that Li Zishuan wasn't in the camp, he couldn't help but grumble. At that time, Li Zishuan had boasted that he would be able to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue in 3 days, and that he only needed the imperial court to send an army to surround the Serpent Spirit Mountain and not let the people or beasts inside escape. Therefore, everyone subconsciously thought that he would be preparing for the attack in the barracks. Therefore, Li Chengxian, Cheng Chumo, and the others all fell into this misconception. Then Brother Chonyo, are we still going to stay here? Yuchi Baolin asked. Cheng Chumo rubbed his chin. After thinking for a moment, he gritted his teeth and said, wait, 2 days have passed. I don't believe that Shaoxian would go back on his words. Let's see how our good brother will challenge an entire sect by himself tomorrow. The two of us accidentally missed the big battle a few days ago. This time, we can't miss it no matter what. Yes, we can't miss it this time. I also believe that Shaoxian can do it. Yuchi Baolin waved his fist and said firmly, newspaper for sale. Newspaper for sale. Today's headline of the newly published Tang Daily. Hero's widow makes trouble. County man's wife retreats with wisdom. 5 copper coins for copy. Early the next morning, the sound of newspaper sellers in the streets of Chang and woke up the world's largest city. With the development of Tang Daily today, it was no longer as low level as before where it had to rely on paperboys to sell newspapers. Now, at the intersection of every street in Chang, and there was basically a kiosk. Firstly, it was convenient for people to buy newspapers as soon as possible. Secondly, it was convenient for readers to receive tips for novel authors. In the past, readers who wanted to give tips had to go to the strange Interest Pavilion workshop in the east of Chang and City. Now, there was no need to go through so much trouble. You only needed to go to the kiosk near your home, tell the person in charge how much you wanted to give, and then pay the money to receive the fan badge. It couldn't be more convenient. Of course, if you were worried that the person in charge of the kiosk would embezzle the money you gave, it would only prove that you were thinking too simply. The distribution and sale of every fan badge in the workshop were recorded. Every month, there would be a professional to check the accounts. Once someone was found to be embezzling, there was nothing much to say. They would be fired immediately and never hired again. Obviously, no one was willing to give up such good benefits in the workshop to do such sneaky things. As a result, the number of fans of every author in Tang Daily's novel section increased exponentially. This was especially true for A Mortal's Journey to Immortality. Up until now, the word count of A Mortal's Journey to Immortality had almost reached 1 million words, and the total number of fans had exceeded 30,000. This made the other authors envious and jealous. What do you mean by a county's man's wife retreating with wisdom? I don't care about that. Hurry up and give me a newspaper. I want to read A Mortal's Journey to Immortality. Yes. Brother, you're a kindred spirit. I'm also a loyal reader of A Mortal's Journey to Immortality. I saw Hanli enter the forbidden bloody ground yesterday. I should know what's inside today. Yo, brother, you're also reading A Mortal's Journey to Immortality. Soulmate. Huh. I'm guessing that there must be magical treasures and pills in the forbidden bloody ground. Hee. I'm guessing that there must be beauties. Hanli is so powerful now, but he still doesn't have a bed-warming maid. That's not suitable. Waha. Brother, you're right. The two bookworms were talking about the plot in front of the group. They seemed to appreciate each other and regretted that they had not met earlier. However, the people behind them were not having it. Sai, I say, are you two done yet? Isn't it just a stupid novel? Other than training, leveling up, and finding treasures in arcane realms. What's the point of it? Look at how useless the two of you are. That's right. That Immortal's Journey to Immortality isn't that good either. It's the same thing over and over again. It's okay when you first read it, but it's boring after reading it for too long. The other person quickly chimed in. The two people in front of the group were not having it. Hey, are you two here to pick a fight? If you think Immortal's Journey to Immortality isn't good, go write one yourself. That's right. Do you have Immortal's Journey to Immortality medals? Did you see it? Branch leader. I'm the branch leader of Immortal's Journey to Immortality. I didn't say that the novel was bad. So what right do you have to say? The person behind said unhappily, Isn't it just a medal? What's so great about it? Hey, Why are you still here if you don't have a medal? Go back and spout sh*t. You're still in the right to read novels for free? Who? Who read novels for free? The money I used to buy newspapers isn't money. The young man in the lead said disdainfully. How can there be such a shameless person like you? Do you want to read newspapers for free? Chapter 533. The quarrel between the mortal fans was just a small interlude. Near the other newsstands, there were still many people attracted by the Tang Daily's headlines. The wife of a county man repulsed 1,000 women in wisdom. Which county man's wife? Could it be the bride that Li Xiansheng just married a while ago? Quick, give me a copy of the newspaper. Give me one too. It's definitely not Li County man's wife. Haven't you heard of the saying, repulsed 1,000 women in wisdom? How can the girl that Li County man married have such ability? A slightly older, middle-aged man in the back said in disbelief. Hey, what are you saying? Can't Li County man's wife repulsed 1,000 women in wisdom? I think the girl is quite good. I heard that she's a beauty from the surrounding villages. Hee. Beauty? Can beauty be eaten? Ignorant. You're the one who's ignorant. Didn't you say that it's impossible for her to be Li County man's wife? Let's see and we'll know. Let's see then. Who's afraid of who? Some people were arguing over the main character in the headlines, while others had already bought the newspaper and were discussing the contents. These shrews are really despicable. Relying on their husband's military achievements, they actually bullied Li County man's family. He's the benefactor of us, poor children. How dare they? Yep. How despicable. The imperial court can't blame Li County man for losing the war. I really don't know what they're thinking. Under the arbor of a tea house, a few young people couldn't help but complain as they read the newspaper. Luckily, Li County man's wife is quite quick-witted. Otherwise, Li County man's reputation would have been ruined by these people. Indeed, but this old Madame Zhao also came at the right time, and she's much more righteous than those shrews. Hey, I know this old Madame Zhao. Her son is in the Imperial Army and lives in the south of the city. I didn't expect that. Feichen, you know her? Then when you have time, bring us to visit this old madam. I'm afraid that even scholars like us can't compare to such a person who understands the principles of righteousness. That's right. These three were Jinyu Academy's Hua Hongyi, Chun Tianhua, and Liao Feichen. However, the three of them were no longer as poor as they used to be. Chun Tianhua and Liao Feichen both published novels on Tang Daily. Although they were not as popular as the legend of a mortal's journey to immortality, their monthly income was still slightly higher than ordinary people. So now, they could occasionally drink tea and go shopping. Yeah, especially when the auntie said, "My son has already shed blood on the battlefield. We can't let him shed tears in the underworld because of these vile people who use his name to do whatever they want." I was very touched to be able to say such words. This Ani Zhao is a person worthy of my Chun Tianhua's respect. That's right. However, those women still have a conscience and didn't ask for the compensation money from the Li family. Otherwise, I, Hua Hongyi, would personally go and judge these people. That's right. At least they have a conscience. The widow of a meritorious official is being unreasonable, and the wife of a county magistrate is retreating with wisdom. What widow of a meritorious official? What retreating with wisdom? How arrogant. Laifu, go buy a newspaper for this old man. A vigorous voice came from a dark red carriage on the road. Yes, old master. The coachman outside the carriage responded and trotted to the newsstand to buy the newspaper. 15 minutes later. Preposterous. This group of shrews is really unreasonable. Even if Li Zishuan is responsible for the defeat of the Imperial Army in the Battle of Snake Spirit Mountain, he can't take full responsibility. Besides, the Imperial Court has already given them compensation, and this group of people actually ran to Li Zishuan's house to ask for money. How insatiable. These wicked people should be arrested and punished. That's not right. These people can actually gather in front of the Li family's house at such a time. There must be some dirty tricks behind this. The person in the carriage was Wei Zheng, who was rushing to the morning court. At this moment, he was muttering to himself as he read the headlines. From a certain perspective, the appearance of Tang Daily could be said to have provided Wei Zheng with a lot of material to remonstrate with. In the past, he had to personally go to the grassroots and find out where the officials were neglecting their duties, taking bribes, or where the citizens were being bullied. Then, he would organize them into memorials and impeach them in the morning court. But now, he only needed to find some unfair or illegal matters in the newspaper and then bring it to the imperial court to ask for the emperor's judgment. Good. This granddaughter of Du Dowling is really not ordinary. Not only does she make good wine, but she also has such quick wit. She's really not simple. Wei Zheng couldn't help but laugh when he saw Han Yushi arguing with a group of women. Good. This Madame Zhao is really a hero among women. She gave birth to a Qilin son who fought for the country and sacrificed his life. She is also deeply righteous. How rare. She deserves a reward. This old man wants to ask for a reward for this person. When he saw old Madame Zhao appear later, Wei Zheng couldn't help but slam the table and shout loudly. Oh, don't let the hero bleed and cry. This person called Little You summed it up well in the end. The Tang Daily is really full of talents. Therefore, a morning court that was supposed to be very calm was stirred up again because of the headlines of the Tang Daily. After the ministers condemned Jiang, Suihua, and the other women, Wei Zheng stepped out of the crowd and asked for a reward for old Madame Zhao. It was rare for this old troll to ask for a reward for others. Lier also gave face, mainly because he originally planned to give old Madame Zhao some rewards, and issued an edict on the spot to give old Madame Zhao the title of a 7th-rank noble lady. Yes, there was no doubt that the Tang Dynasty already had the saying of a noble lady. Since the Han Dynasty, the wives of the princes, dukes, and ministers, that is, those who were in power and above, were called madams. The Tang, Song, Ming, and Qing dynasties also gave the mothers or wives of high officials additional titles and were called noble ladies. The imperial edict as a royal document began in the Western Zhou dynasty. For example, the Shangshu Shu contained the Great Edict, Tang Edict, Kong Wang's Edict, and so on. It was a document that the Zhou emperor used to warn his officials. Qingdun did not use it. It was occasionally used in the Han Dynasty and was not used regularly. The Tang Dynasty used imperial edicts to punish and reward. However, the imperial edict system was gradually perfected during the Ming and Qing dynasties and formed a complete system. With Lier's edict, the other families who'd gone to the Li family to cause trouble were even more terrified. They didn't expect that such a small matter would be heard by the heavens. Moreover, Lier rewarded Madame Zhao. Didn't he mean that he was dissatisfied with their actions? Therefore, Jiang Zihua, who was still in prison, was cursed over and over again by countless people. Chapter 534. F***CK. This godforsaken place is so unlucky. There are so many mosquitoes at night. Chung Chumo raised his head, lying on the back of the horse, and said with a sad face, unlike the other young masters of the rich and powerful families, Chung Chumo was not someone who could not bear hardships. A few years ago, he had gone to war with Chang Yaojin, Li Jing, and the others. Even so, the mosquitoes last night were still unbearable for him. Not only did the mosquitoes around Snake Spirit Mountain suck blood, they were also F***king poisonous. Although it was only mildly poisonous and not fatal, it was still enough to make one suffer. Chung Chumo's face, which was not handsome to begin with, was already covered in red bumps. This fellow was still scratching everywhere, as if he would not stop until his skin was broken. Hee, I think his place is pretty good. Yuchi Baolin chuckled as he sat on his horse. Speaking of which, it was strange. Chung Chumo slept in the same tent as him, but the mosquitoes only bit Chung Chumo. Yuchi Baolin was completely fine. He was still white and chubby, no, black and chubby. It would have been better if Yuchi Baolin had not spoken, But the moment he did, Chung Chumo was a little angry. F***CK, Baolin, you're still being sarcastic here. Why don't those mosquitoes bite you? Is it because you're too fat? Yuchi Baolin said embarrassedly. Maybe it's because I'm too dark, and those mosquitoes can't see me at night. Why don't you bask in the sun more, Brother Chonyo? You'll be like me then. Scram! Chung Chumo scolded angrily. If I look like a coal ball like you, how am I going to find a wife? Hee hee. Yuchi Baolin laughed dryly. He looked at the sky and said, Brother Chonyo, today is the third day. Why isn't Shaoxian here yet? Do you think he hasn't thought of a way yet? Ching Chumo's brows furrowed slightly, but they immediately smoothed out. He sat up straight and said, That won't happen. Ever since I've known little Xian, I've never seen him stumped by anything. He'll definitely come today. Okay. Zhao Song, is there any movement on Li Zishuan's side? Afternoon, in the Sweet Dew Hall, Lier asked casually as he read through the memorials. Your Majesty, Li Xianan should still be in the workshop and hasn't done anything yet. Zhao Song replied softly. Oh, isn't today the third day? Did I remember the wrong date? Lier put down his brush and asked doubtfully. Your Majesty, you didn't remember wrongly. Today is the third day of the 3-day period proposed by Li Xianan. Hey, that's strange. This kid is still cooped up in the workshop. Is he at his wit's end? Do you know what he did in the workshop 2 days ago? Lier furrowed his brows and asked in bewilderment. Zhao Song bowed and said, Your Majesty, Li Xianan is a martial arts grandmaster. This old servant's subordinates didn't dare to get too close to him and could only wait outside the workshop. Therefore, this old servant has no way of knowing what Li Xianan did in the past 2 days. I only know that he entered the workshop 2 days ago and hasn't come out since. Lier nodded. After pondering for a long time, he sighed and said, It's getting harder and harder to see through this kid. Right now, all the people of Chang and are waiting for the results of the Imperial Army's second expedition against the 7 cultivators of true virtue. He better not make a fool of himself at this critical moment. When Li Zishuan declared that he would destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue with his own strength, Li Er still had some confidence in Li Zishuan. After all, Li Zishuan had given him too many surprises before. However, after so many days, Li Zishuan still hadn't made any move. Li Er's heart turned cold. At this time, he only hoped that Li Zishuan wouldn't make a fool of himself and lose face for the imperial court. As for the 7 cultivators of true virtue, it wouldn't be too late to attack them after the army regrouped. Senior Marshal Brother, how are your injuries? Snake Spirit Mountain, inside the secret chamber of the 7 cultivators of true virtue. Snake King looked at the imposing Batian in front of him and asked excitedly. Speaking of which, these 2 martial brothers could be considered as brothers in distress. Previously, Snake King was injured by Li Zishuan and returned to this secret room to recuperate. 2 days ago, it was Baishan's turn. However, Baishan's injuries weren't as serious as Snake King's. Moreover, the recovery ability of a peak Grandmaster Realm expert was even more outstanding. Therefore, he was able to recover in just a few days. Huh, Junior Marshal Brother, you guessed right. My injuries are completely healed. Batian laughed and jumped down from the stone bed. Then, he asked with a concerned face, Junior Marshal Brother, how is your body? Huh, Senior Marshal Brother, it's good that you're fine. As for my injuries, I'm already very lucky to be able to keep my life. In the past few days, Batian was the only one here to recuperate. Snake King felt that there was no hope for him to fully recover, so he gave up on recuperating. Baishan's face darkened, and he said hatefully, It's all because of that little bastard Li Zishuan. We were originally living in peace, but that brat wanted to destroy our sect. Now, both of us are injured and crippled. I, Batian, am not a man if I don't take revenge. Senior Marshal Brother is right. I have no other wish in this life except to kill Li Zishuan. It's all up to Senior Marshal Brother. Snake King's eyes flashed with a trace of fierceness as he hurriedly pleaded loudly. Batian immediately said with a murderous look, don't worry, Junior Marshal Brother. Once the Imperial Army retreats, I'll take you and your brothers to find a place to settle down. Then, I'll come back to settle the score with that brat. I'll kidnap his wife first, kill his parents, and then slowly torture him. Huh, Senior Marshal Brother, this is a good plan. We should let that brat have a taste of our strength. By the way, Junior Marshal Brother, are you still suffering from the backlash of the Seven Virtues snake? A trace of pain flashed across Snake King's face. He nodded and said, now that I've lost all my internal force, I can barely control the Seven Virtues snake with the power of the bloodline. It's reasonable for me to suffer from the backlash, but I'm afraid that I can't hold on for long. But what if that brat leads his army to attack the mountain after the Seven Virtues snake is out of our control? What should we do? Inbation's face gradually became serious. He frowned and pondered for a long time. Then he said decisively, then let's launch a surprise attack on them while we still have the strength to fight. Junior Marshal Brother, you can control the Seven Virtues snake to open the way, and I'll detonate all the poisonous pills in the sect from behind. We can take advantage of the chaos to break out of the encirclement. What do you think? Snake King was shocked when he heard this. However, after thinking about it carefully, he felt that there was no better way at present. So, he nodded and said, I'll listen to Senior Marshal Brother's arrangement. But Senior Marshal Brother, you have to hurry. I can control the Seven Virtues snake at most for 3 more days. Okay, then let's make preparations today. Before dawn tomorrow, when the army is still asleep, we'll catch them off guard. Chapter 535. Xianji, did you arrange for those women in Tang daily to cause trouble at the Li Mansion? South of Chang, and city, Dunhua Square. In a quaint room of the wealthy house, the white-haired old man leaned on the couch and looked at the young man standing below and asked in a deep voice, Granduncle, this is all my fault for not thinking it through. Please forgive me. Hearing this, the young man bowed and said with a frightened expression, Ha, Xianji, you gave advice to the family. What's wrong with that? The white-haired old man laughed loudly and raised his hand, indicating for the young man to stand up. Then he continued, Xianji, your plan is a good one. If it's well planned, we can ruin Li Zishuan's reputation without any effort. But the bad thing is that Xianji, you met the wrong person and acted a little too hastily. The young man hurriedly said, Granduncle is right. Xianji really did not think it through this time. The white-haired old man showed a gratified expression and said, Those in power must learn to know how to use people well. Jiang Suihua is obviously not a person who can take on big responsibilities. Xianji, you must learn from this in the future. Don't ruin things because of these incompetent people. Yes, Granduncle. Although the young man disagreed in his heart, he did not show it on his face. He pretended very well. Oh, that's right. Have you arranged for the meeting of the big families tomorrow? The white-haired old man was suddenly startled and raised his eyes to ask, Granduncle, don't worry. Everything has been arranged. There won't be any mistakes. The young man said confidently. The white-haired old man nodded and laughed. Ha, Xianji, I still believe in your ability to do things. Tomorrow's meeting is also a good time for you juniors to get to know each other better. The young man smiled and said, Actually, Xianji has the same idea. Excluding the royal family, there are only 6 of us left in the 5 families and 7 sects, and we all have our own camps. Now, the Wang family of Taiyuan is still estranged from us and is getting closer and closer to the royal family. In the long run, we will be divided by the emperor. Therefore, I also think that the aristocratic families should contact each other. The white-haired old man agreed and said, Xianji, you understand it best. Those old fellows are not as good as you. Now that we can't count on Snake Spirit Mountain, it's up to you, Xianji. Granduncle, speaking of the Snake Spirit Mountain, my father heard some news. The white-haired old man frowned and asked, What news? The young man stepped forward and whispered, My father heard that the imperial court has sent 10,000 soldiers to surround the Snake Spirit Mountain. However, They will only surround it and not attack. Why? It said that Li Zishuan made a military order in front of the emperor, saying that he wanted to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue by himself. The imperial court only needed to send an army to surround the Serpent Spirit Mountain. The white-haired old man was stunned at first. Then he laughed and said, "Ha ha! This kid really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Shameless boasting, shameless boasting. If the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect was so easy to destroy, how could he have returned with 4,000 imperial guards in defeat? I thought this kid would be a good opponent, but I didn't expect him to be an arrogant brat who only knows how to talk big. Xianji, you can help Li Zishuan spread the news." Spread the news? The young man was puzzled, but then he suddenly understood and laughed. Granduncle is wise. In this way, we will be able to defeat Li Zishuan without any effort. This grandson will send someone to spread the news early tomorrow morning. Although the news that Li Zishuan wanted to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue by himself was not a top-secret military intelligence, the only people who knew about it were the few big shots who went to the Suite du Hall to discuss the matter that day. They would never spread the news. As for the man named Xianji, it was somewhat inconceivable that his father could get hold of this news. Now that 3 days had passed and the sky was about to turn dark, nothing had happened. Those who knew about this news gradually began to doubt Li Zishuan's bold words and believed that Li Zishuan was going to die this time. Li Zishuan didn't know what others were thinking. He was making the final preparations for his expedition and was responsible for his own safety. The kerosene is full. It should be enough to fly to Snake Spirit Mountain. These bombs should be enough to blow up a mountain. The ropes are tied tight, the tarpaulin is not damaged, and the bombs have isolated the source of the fire. Oh, what a waste. Lai Tzu, after Li Zishuan carefully checked everything from top to bottom, inside and out, he jumped into the square rattan basket. Ignite the fire. With a whoosh, the kerosene was ignited. The fuel tank that contained the kerosene was specially made by Li Zishuan, and it could control the intensity of the fire. Not long after, the huge, ball-shaped oilcloth quickly swelled up. Gradually, the rattan basket left the ground and slowly rose into the sky. The 3rd day of the 8th month of the 1st year of Zhengguan. It was a night with a light breeze. In the east of Chang and city, a bright flame suddenly rose from the workshop of the strange interest pavilion and slowly flew out of the city. The first to notice this strange scene was the spy sent by Zhao Song outside the strange interest pavilion. "Boss, look, 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 there's a ghost fire in the sky." Bullsh *T, there's no ghost. What's that? The leader of the men was about to reprimand his subordinates when he inadvertently saw the flame in the sky and was instantly scared out of his wits. The night in this era was different from the modern era. There were no streetlights here and no nightlife. Once night fell, there was only pure darkness. Therefore, that flame looked extremely dazzling. Boss, that flame flew out of the workshop. Could it be that there's a ghost in the workshop? A short man couldn't help but cower and say, "Smack!" The leader of the men slapped him and scolded, "Chen Nan, you little bastard, don't scare yourself. I've lived for so many years and have seen everything, but I've never seen a ghost." Yes, boss is wise. The leader of the men snorted and said, "You guys continue to keep an eye here. I'll go back and report the situation here to Zhao Song's husband." The eunuchs of the Tang Dynasty were often referred to as husband. This husband is not that husband. Don't get the wrong idea. Boss, don't. It's better to let this little brother take care of such a troublesome matter. The rest of the men were stunned. By the time they reacted and said this, their boss had already disappeared without a trace. Speaking of which, even Li Zishuan himself probably didn't expect that the debut of his hot air balloon in Tang Dynasty would be mistaken as a ghost fire by these idiots. Chapter 536. Mother, brother, look, someone is releasing a sky lantern. Gi Lane, Meng Wenhao's house. After dinner, Yaya came to the courtyard and inadvertently saw a bright flame floating in the sky in the northeast direction. The little girl couldn't help but shout excitedly in that direction. The so-called sky lantern was another name for the Kongming lantern. It was commonly known as the wishing lantern or the praying lantern. It was an ancient handicraft of China. In ancient times, it was mostly used for military purposes, but some people would release it on major festivals, such as the Lantern Festival and the Mid-Autumn Festival, to make wishes and pray. There were two theories about the origin of the Kongming lantern. One was that during the 5 dynasties, there was a woman named Shen Qinyang. When she was fighting in Fujian with her husband, she used bamboo strips to make a square frame, pasted paper on it, and made it into a lamp. Burning pine resin was placed on the chassis, and the lamp flew into the sky with the hot air as a military communication signal. This kind of pine resin lamp was called the Kongming lantern in Sichuan. The main reason was that this kind of lantern looked like the hat worn by Zhuge Liang, hence the name. The other theory was that it was invented by Zhuge Liang during the Three Kingdoms. At that time, Zhuge Liang was besieged in Pingyang and couldn't send troops out of the city to ask for help. Kongming calculated the direction of the wind and made a floating paper lantern. He tied the paper lantern with a message asking for help. After that, he really got out of danger, so the later generations called this kind of lantern the Kongming lantern. No matter which theory was correct, it was an indisputable fact that there were already Kongming lanterns in the Tang Dynasty. That's true, but there are still more than 10 days before the Mid-Autumn Festival. Why would someone release a sky lantern at this time? Meng Wenhao's mother heard her daughter scream and ran out to see the commotion. After seeing the flame clearly, she said with some doubts, "Mother, that's not a sky lantern," Meng Wenhao said sullenly at this time, and then he gestured with his hands. "That ball of fire is at least 4 to 5 miles away from us. Generally speaking, the farther something is, the smaller it looks. Now that we can see it so clearly from such a distance, it means that this thing is at least dozens of times bigger than an ordinary sky lantern. It's definitely not a sky lantern." Meng Wenhao's mother thought carefully and felt that her son's words made sense, but she still had some doubts. But if it's not a sky lantern, what else can it fly so high? "I don't know," Meng Wenhao shook his head and said, "but my master definitely knows." Meng Wenhao's mother rubbed her son's head. "Yes, yes, yes. How's your master is the best. All of you should go and rest early." "How? You still have to go to Minister Hu's grain store tomorrow to settle the accounts." Meng Wenhao's father had been out at sea for almost 3 months. Now that the pillar of the family was gone, Meng Wenhao had no choice but to step up. Therefore, he took advantage of the 2-month farmland leave to find a job to supplement the family. The other party was Squire Hu's family that Mother Meng often worked for. As for his position, he was the bookkeeper. Relying on the glorious halo of being the top scorer in the School of Mathematics and the advanced mathematical knowledge in his mind, Meng Wenhao alone was equivalent to 10 of the Hu family's original bookkeepers. Thus, Squire Hu not only treated him with special respect, but also gave him an unusually high salary. "Oh, and then," Meng Wenhao replied in a muffled voice, but his expression became somewhat strange. "Your Majesty, according to the report, a big ball of fire just flew out of the workshop of the interesting pavilion, and it's flying northeast. It should be out of the city soon." In the Suite du Hall, Li Er rubbed his sore wrist and was about to return to Zhang Xuan's place to sleep when Zhao Song suddenly rushed in and reported, "A flying ball of fire?" Li Er frowned, and his face became a little strange. After a while, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly stood up. "Let's go to the Xuanwu Gate." The Xuanwu Gate, the north gate of the Taiji Palace, was located on the slope of the Dragon Head Plain. It overlooked the entire Chong and city and was an important gate in the north of the palace. Of course, compared to its geographical location, the Xuanwu Gate was more famous for its political and military position. After all, there was a change of regime here last year. In fact, in a few years, a bigger and more magnificent building would be built here, and that would be the famous Daming Palace. It could be seen even from outside Chong and city. If there were no accidents, Li Er would order it to be built in the 8th year of Jingguan. Your Majesty, look, it's that ball of fire. It should be flying out of Chang and city soon. Zhao Song pointed to the eastern sky and said to Li Er when they came to the tower of the Xuanwu Gate. Li Er nodded and responded, but his eyes were staring in that direction without blinking. Zhao Song did not know why Li Er was so focused, but he did not dare to ask. He just stood at the side with his head lowered. Let's go back to the palace. After a long time, the ball of fire became smaller and smaller until it finally disappeared. Li Er flung his sleeves and turned to leave. He left a sentence in the air, but it stunned Zhao Song. When Li Zishuan returns to the city tomorrow, ask him to come and see me immediately. Zhao Song frowned and followed behind Li Er. He wondered, isn't Li Zishuan still in the workshop now? Why does Your Majesty have to wait for him to return to the city tomorrow? A punch to the left, a punch to the right. I urge everyone to take a punch. Li Zishuan couldn't care less about how depressed Zhao Song was. He was busy cleaning up the mess he had made up in the past. When the hot air balloon flew into the sky earlier, he regretted it. That was because the wind was blowing from the south, and the Qinling Mountains were northeast of Chang and city. The wind direction was not suitable at all. If Li Zishuan did nothing and let the ball of fire fly freely, it would definitely not reach the Snake Spirit Mountain. It would only fly further and further to the north. Back then, when Kongming made the Kongming lantern to ask for help, he had already calculated the direction of the wind. Although Li Zishuan was a Taoist, he did not learn the ability to calculate. Hence, he was a little confused when he flew up. This was really the only thing that he had missed out on. Fortunately, Li Zishuan was smart enough to come up with this idea. He kept throwing punches to the west. His punches were infused with true qi. Using the recoil force of his punches and the push of the south wind, Li Zishuan limped towards the northeast with the ball in tow. Those who had learned force analysis would definitely be able to analyze it. Damn it, does this count as a rocket with its own gas tank? Li Zishuan mumbled gloomily as he worked in the air. Ahem, I have to admit that his description was very apt. Chapter 537. Brother Chonyo, it's already so late. Where are you going? Shoo, Baolin, lower your voice. At the base of Snake Spirit Mountain, in the darkness, a fat man and a little girl were huddled together and whispering to each other. Baolin, I think little Xian should be here soon. I plan to go out and take a look. Do you want to come with me? But it's already the second night watch period. The military has a rule that other than the soldiers on night duty, no one else is allowed to run around at night. If we get caught, Uncle Neo will beat us up. Hey, I say, why are you so stupid? Can't we just be smart and not get caught? Just tell me if you want to go or not. The fat shadow scratched his head and said, all right, I'll go with you. Hey, that's more like it. Second senior brother, why are you sleeping? If the soldiers at the base of the mountain attack, we'll be finished. On the mountain path of Snake Spirit Mountain, an anxious call came from a thatched hut that was temporarily built at the checkpoint. Woo, stop messing around. In a few more hours, we'll be breaking out of the mountain. Wang Lin, you brat, why don't you sleep a little longer? In the hut, the man on the bed turned around but didn't get up. He muttered impatiently, Huff, huff. Ruhua, I'll be able to go down the mountain to find you soon. Hee hee, you still want to escape? If you don't listen to me, I'll kill those two old things. Ha! After a short while, the man seemed to have fallen asleep and was still muttering. The skinny young man beside the bed was speechless. He pushed the man on the bed twice and shouted, Second senior brother, you can't sleep? If the Imperial Army attacks at this time, we can only wait for death. Second senior brother, quickly get up. Hey, I say, Wang Lin, aren't you annoying? The man on the bed finally couldn't stand the disturbance and sat up. He reprimanded, What are you doing here instead of sleeping? The army at the foot of the mountain has been surrounding us for more than a day or two. If those cowards dared to attack us, they would have attacked us during the day. Why would they wait until nighttime? Our Snake Spirit Mountain's terrain is so steep. If they really dare to come up at this time, I'll do a handstand and eat shit. The young man at the side was scolded until he retreated. In the end, he muttered, second senior brother, this. How do I eat shit while standing upside down? The expression on the second senior brother's face suddenly froze. You. He pointed at the young man under the bed and couldn't say anything else for a long time. After taking a few deep breaths, he roared, Wong Lin, get the hell out of here. You're sleeping outside tonight. Hee, right here. We'll wait here for little Xian. Inside the camp, after Cheng Chumo and Yuchi Baolin avoided several waves of guards, they came to a bush on a small hill nearby. Cheng Chumo turned back and said proudly, Hee, I'm sure you're right. Baolin, how is it? You won't be discovered if you follow me, right? Yuchi Baolin nodded like a chick pecking at rice. He said in amazement, Big brother Chonyo, you're really amazing. But how do you know when there's no guard on the road? Hee, you're the only one who doesn't know. Brother, I already figured out the night guard rotation pattern here. Cheng Chumo's tail was wagging as he showed off. Yuchi Baolin immediately looked at him with admiration. He looked around and asked in a rough voice, but it's already so late. Can Lil Xian still come? Did we wait for nothing? Huh, don't worry, kid. Cheng Chumo patted Yuchi Baolin's shoulder and smiled. Although little Xian likes to boast, he always comes true. This time won't be an exception. Isn't it only midnight now? I'm sure he'll come before midnight. After all, today's the last day of the 3-day period. Let's wait here. We can see the Yuan Gate from here. If he comes, we'll be the first to see him. Okay. I'll listen to you. Yuchi Baolin nodded and squatted down as well. Unexpectedly, the moment he squatted down, he heard Cheng Chumo yelling exaggeratedly. Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit! Baolin, look! Big brother Chonyo, what are you looking at? There's no moon tonight. Yuchi Baolin was puzzled. Moon, my ass. Look up. This guy is prettier than the moon. What the heck? Why is this ball of fire flying so high? Cheng Chumo slapped the back of Yuchi Baolin's head, then raised his head and exclaimed in surprise. Out of curiosity, Yuchi Baolin looked up as well. What he saw was incredible. Roar. Oh my god. Brother Chonyo, let's run. This ball of willow, the wisp, we can't beat it. Let's go back and call for help. When Yuchi Baolin saw the flying ball of fire, he was so scared that he jumped up and shouted in panic. Shut up. What willow, the wisp? There seems to be someone up there. Coincidentally, the ball of fire was getting closer and closer to their heads. Cheng Chumo had good eyesight and could vaguely see someone dancing up there. He hurriedly covered Yuchi Baolin's mouth and scolded him. Woo. Shut up. There seems to be a fairy up there. Yes. That's a fairy descending to the mortal world. Oh my god. Did the heavens see that I, old chum, am still single and sent me a fairy? Hey. Why did she run away? Good and evil will be repaid, and the heavens will reincarnate. Today, the heavens have bestowed justice upon me, and I'll use lightning and fire to purify you sinful sinners. Silence reigned on Serpent Spirit Mountain. Just as everyone was about to fall asleep, a loud bellow came from the 9 heavens. Everyone immediately woke up from their dreams. Which scoundrel dares to behave atrociously in my 7 cultivators sect? Batian dashed out of his room and was shocked when he saw the flying ball of fire in the sky. However, he pretended to be calm and shouted, Hee, I'm your grandfather. That wasn't the only thing that came from the sky. There were also 4 or 5 black iron balls with sparks on them. Child's play. Batian thought that they were hidden weapons. He took 2 steps back to avoid them and sneered at the sky. However, before he could finish his sentence, he felt several earth-shattering heat waves coming from all over his body. Boom. Sand and stones flew everywhere, and the sound shook the sky. The peaceful Serpent Spirit Mountain peak instantly turned into a living hell. Batian, a peak Grandmaster Realm expert, was seriously injured in an instant. Save me. My leg. This is the wrath of the heavens. It's over, it's all over. Damn it. Why didn't you run down the mountain with Yunda and the others last time? Li Zishuan didn't show any mercy. He threw the bombs in the hanging basket down as if they were free. The mountain collapsed, and the ground caved in. All the houses couldn't withstand the explosion and collapsed in the blink of an eye. Many disciples of the Seven Cultivators sect who didn't have time to get out of their houses were buried in the collapsed houses. For a moment, cries for help could be heard everywhere. Senior brother, how did this happen? What happened? Snake King staggered a few steps and came to the side of Embark, who was seriously injured and lying on the ground, and asked in disbelief, "Run, junior brother, quickly take 7 cultivators of true virtue and run away. Run as far as you can." Chapter 538. For the 215 heroic souls who died here 3 days ago, I'm here to avenge you today. I'm going to wipe out the entire Snake Spirit Mountain. Since they were so far away, and the flames of war were raging below, Li Zishuan naturally couldn't see Baishan's current situation, nor could he hear the conversation between the flying snake and Embark. He controlled the direction of the hot air balloon while throwing bombs down below, bombarding the area without any blind spots. This guy was now like a fighter pilot flying a bomber. He just wanted to charge and kill. Roar, roar, roar. Just then, a deafening roar came from below. Li Zishuan could clearly hear it from above. It was none other than 7th Cultivator of True Virtue. Oomph. Just in time, you bastard. Li Zishuan quickly searched for 7th Cultivator of True Virtue's position with his eyes. After a while, he finally found 7th Cultivator of True Virtue rolling on the ground behind the original hall of the 7 Cultivator of True Virtue sect. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Li Zishuan didn't hesitate. He ignited 4 or 5 bombs in a few breaths, and then threw them at 7th Cultivator of True Virtue. Aren't your snake scales as hard as iron? I like to see if you can withstand a bomb or not. Boom, 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 boom. Roar. As it turned out, no creature could resist this violent bombardment. The 7th Cultivator of True Virtue was instantly covered with wounds, and it issued a painful howl. The sound of the howl was even louder than the sound of the explosion, and it reverberated throughout the entire Serpent Mountain. Poison, poison. Upon hearing the howl, the Snake King's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He desperately wanted to run in that direction, but at this moment he was surrounded by flames and couldn't rush out at all. Moreover, a bomb just happened to detonate right next to him. With a loud boom, the flying snake's limbs were instantly blown off, and he was blown far away, no longer able to speak. Most of the houses in this era were made of wood. After Li Zishuan's previous bombardment, the place had basically turned into a sea of fire. In order to prevent anyone from escaping, he did not hold back and bombarded the top of the mountain twice. A quarter of an hour later, apart from the crackling sound of the burning wood, there were no other cries for help or howls. Li Zishuan finally stopped. He looked at the motionless 7th Cultivator of True Virtue lying on the ground. Then he suddenly had an idea and controlled the hot air balloon to slowly descend at the foot of Snake Spirit Mountain. 15 minutes ago. Brother Chonyo, it's almost midnight. Let's go back. Little Xian probably won't come. Yuchi Baolin pulled Chung Chumo, who had been looking to the east. That was the direction Li Zishuan had just flown in the hot air balloon, and said in a muffled voice, "Sai, Baolin, stop messing around. Didn't you see the fairy dancing for me on the fireball just now?" Chung Chumo impatiently slapped Yuchi Baolin's hand away and said with an intoxicated look on his face, I didn't see anything." Yuchi Baolin slightly despised Chung Chumo in his heart. However, he really didn't see clearly whether there was anyone on the fireball just now. His vision was very blurry at night, and he only saw a ball of fire just now. This was more or less what modern people called night blindness in ancient China, because the ancient people were malnourished and carrots hadn't been introduced into China at that time. Some people believed that the ancient people generally suffered from night blindness. Although the statement was slightly exaggerated, because night blindness was mainly caused by 3 things: disease, congenital heredity, and vitamin A deficiency. The ancient people mainly suffered from malnutrition due to insufficient protein, fat, and sugar intake. Vitamin A deficiency wasn't very serious. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many cases of night battles in history books. However, it was an indisputable fact that the ancient people suffered from night blindness compared to modern people. Sigh, Balin, it's not that I want to nag at you, but with your eyesight, even if fate comes, you won't be able to see it. If you continue like this, you're probably destined to be single forever. Ching Chumo patted Yuchi Balin's shoulder and said in a tone that was heavy and not at all full of shame. If this fellow knew the truth, would he still be as calm as he was now? Huh? Yuchi Balin glanced at Chung Chumo with an innocent expression. He really got shot even when he was lying down. Boom, 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 boom. At this moment, Chung Chumo and Yuchi Balin first saw a large patch of bright fire appear on the peak of Snake Spirit Mountain in the east. Right after that, they heard a loud rumble coming from there. The two of them were so shocked that they fell on their butts in the grass. Holy F***CK. Holy F***CK. There's thunder. There's thunder over there. This thunder is too F***king awesome, isn't it? Chung Chumo couldn't be bothered to hide anymore. He jumped up and shouted, "That's not thunder." At this moment, Chung Chumo felt a gust of wind by his ear. Then, he heard an extremely calm voice. Chung Chumo subconsciously spat out, "Bullsh**T. Other than thunder, what else can cause such a... Uncle Nyo, why are you here?" Chung Chumo turned around and saw who it was. He was tongue-tied. At this moment, he really wanted to slap himself twice. Yuchi Baolin had already wilted when he saw Nyo Jinda. When he heard Chung Chumo's suicidal words, he almost burst out laughing. In any case, this child was having a hard time holding it in. Why am I here? This old man wants to ask the two of you, why are you here? Not sleeping in a tent in the middle of the night and going out of the camp without permission. Do you know that you're ignoring military rules? Even if this old man breaks your legs today, Jijia and Jingda will have nothing to say. Neo Jinda put on a poker face and scolded the two of them coldly. Don't, Uncle Neo, don't be angry. Balin and I just needed to pee and came out to pee. Coincidentally, there was thunder over there. Ah, right, you said that it wasn't thunder over there. What was it? Chung Chumo shrunk his neck, licked his face, and cleverly changed the topic. Neo Jinda glanced at this fellow. How could he not see that Chung Chumo was changing the topic? However, he was just scaring these two children just now. He didn't really want to use military law on them. At this moment, he snorted and said, "Although this old man doesn't know what it is, it's definitely not thunder, because there won't be rain in the next few days." At this point, he couldn't help but move his legs. When he said that there wouldn't be rain in the next few days, it wasn't because he saw the weather forecast, nor was it because he could predict the weather like Zhuge Liang. It was because he had a rheumatic leg. Besides, what kind of thunder can shake the earth and mountains? With this momentum, the peak of Snake Spirit Mountain is probably going to be flattened. This is probably Xiaoshuan's method. This child really can do what she says. Neo Jinda stroked his beard and guessed. What? It's Xiaoxian? F***CK vomit. Chung Chumo reacted with a face full of horror. Then, he staggered a few steps and ran to the side to vomit. Hee. So, Brother Chonyo's fairy is Xiaoxian. Yuchi Baolin scratched his head and laughed foolishly. What fairy? Neo Jinda was a little confused. Above our heads just now. Yuchi Baolin, if you dare to tell anyone, this old man will definitely kill you. Yuchi Baolin was about to explain when Chung Chumo's angry and sorrowful roar came from the bushes beside them. Chapter 539. Chang'an, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, this old servant has something important to report. West Court, Empress Zhongxuan's bedroom. Zhao Song stood in front of the door with a hunchback. His face was anxious and helpless. He knew better than anyone else that Li Er was probably exercising with Emperor Zhongxuan at this hour. Whoever dared to disturb them now would not end well. However, Zhao Song was at his wit's end. His subordinates had reported such an important matter to him. If he did not report it to Li Er in time, he would be fully responsible for any accidents that happened. What's the matter? After about 3 breaths, Li Er's muffled voice came from the room. It was obvious that he was not in a good mood. No one would be in a good mood if they were woken up in the middle of the night, let alone the ruler of a country. Zhao Song's heart sank. He secretly hated the subordinate who reported this to him. However, now that things had come to this, he had no choice but to say, "Your Majesty, there was thunder and fire in the northeast of Chang'an City. Half the sky is burning red, and that direction is Snake Spirit Mountain. I was worried that the army at the foot of Snake Spirit Mountain would be attacked, and the situation would change. That was why I came to report in the middle of the night. I hope your Majesty can forgive me." After Zhao Song finished speaking, the room fell into silence. Li Er did not say anything. Zhao Song could only wait outside the room, not daring to move. After an unknown period of time, Li Er's emotionless voice finally sounded. "I got it. You may leave." Got it? Would it be over just knowing about it? Zhao Song was full of doubts, but he did not dare to ask. He could only bow and yes, then carefully left the courtyard. In the bedroom, Empress Zhongxuan's hair was messy, and her cheeks were slightly red. She leaned on Li Er's shoulder and asked doubtfully, "Erlang, aren't you worried that General Niu's men were attacked at night?" Li Er recovered from his thoughts. He lifted Zhongxuan's chin and smiled confidently. "Huh, 10,000 elites surrounded a small sect of less than 100 people. If the other party gave up the geographical advantage and attacked at night, I can only say that they are tired of living. Moreover, Jinda is very strict in managing the army. He definitely won't let anyone take advantage of the loopholes." A confident man was the most charming. Zhang Sun smiled and leaned closer to Li Er. Then he asked, "What happened in the northeast to cause such a big commotion?" Seeing how calm Erlang was, he probably already knew about it, right? Can you tell me? Li Er looked towards the northeast with a deep gaze, and then said to Emperor Zhongsun with a smile, "Whatever happened over there, Guanyin, maid will know tomorrow. Shouldn't we continue what we were doing just now?" No. The weather is dry. Be careful of candles. Clang, clang, clang. In this era where there was no TV, internet, or computer, most people would be asleep at this time. However, there was an exception, and that was the night watchman. The job of a night watchman had already appeared in the Zhou Dynasty. The rites of Zhou recorded compare it with the evening strike of the scorpion. According to the Tsihai's explanation, it was strike the scorpion in the night, which was the same as the most commonly used clapper. The curfew system in Chang'an City was only for ordinary people. The night watchman was not included in this list. This was because the night watchman's function was not only to report the time, but also to patrol at night and prevent fire and theft. If they encountered someone stealing, they could report it to the authorities and get a generous reward. Therefore, the night watchman was a very respected job in ancient times. Yongle Lane. 2 old men in blue clothes and blue hats. One was holding a gong, and the other was beating at the side, singing the same tune. Why were the 2 of them doing the night watch together? It was mainly to boost each other's courage. After all, there were no street lights at this time, and it was dark all around. Anyone would be afraid. As usual, the 2 planned to go home and rest for an hour after this time. At this time, a fire suddenly floated over from the sky. What was even more strange was that there seemed to be a long thing hanging under the fire. Ghost, 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 ghost. Hawaiian run. Demon, demon. Oh my God. Chang'e, wait for me. Both of them had a look of horror on their faces. They didn't even want the things in their hands and immediately ran away. Huff, huff, huff. Damn, this is really not something a human should do. No matter what, I won't act cool next time. I'll just stay at home and hug my wife. In the sky, Li Zixuan looked at the familiar mansion below, took a few deep breaths, and said gloomily, "The straight-line distance from Chang'an City to Snake Spirit Mountain was at least more than 20 kilometers in the sky. He had to act as a human-shaped engine twice, and the worst thing was that the wind was against him when he came back. How could he not be tired? Even a Grandmaster expert would be exhausted like a dog. Thank goodness, thank goodness. I've finally succeeded in acting cool this time, and I've avenged those people. I can go home and rest in peace." Li Zishuan controlled the hot air balloon to the sky above the Li residence. Then, he slowly turned off the fire and planned to let the hot air balloon slowly descend to the west courtyard. Bam! If he wanted to land, he had to unload the goods first. Li Zishuan let the hot air balloon descend 10 meters from the ground and untied the rope that tied the corpse of 7th cultivator of true virtue. With a bang, the corpse of the giant snake fell to the ground. Then, he prepared to let the basket land. Which scoundrel dares to steal from the Li residence? The head of the guards of the Li residence was awakened by the sound of the giant snake falling to the ground. He hurriedly ran to the west courtyard and shouted in a deep voice. Then he was about to barge in. "It's me, Feijai. It's none of your business. Go and rest," Li Zishuan said in a deep voice. Pang Feiji was stunned. Then, he said in surprise, "Is Lord Zhu back?" He also stopped in his tracks. He was so anxious just now that he almost forgot the rules. There were women living in the west courtyard. It was not convenient for him to go in. "Okay, go and rest. Don't disturb others." Li Zishuan nodded indifferently. Then, he continued to control the hot air balloon to land. Pang Feiji could only vaguely see the faint light of the fire in the courtyard. He hurriedly said, "Yes, Lord Zhu." After saying that, he retreated. "How? I sneaked out of the city and returned in triumph. Does this count as me sneaking out of the city and not taking advantage of the situation?" Li Zishuan jumped out of the basket, turned off the hot air balloon, and roughly cleaned it up. Then, he dragged the corpse of 7th cultivator of true virtue to an open space at the side and muttered to himself, "Husband, you're back." At this moment, the door opened, and the candlelight in the house also jumped out. Han Yushi, who was wearing a thin pink cloak, stood at the door and smiled at Li Zishuan. Chapter 540. Comfortable. How can the grudges and grudges of the pugilistic world be more comfortable than sleeping with my wife at home? I won't leave home for so many days in the future. The next morning, Li Zishuan stretched lazily on the bed and moaned in an extremely satisfied manner. Han Yushi, who was dressing up in front of the immortal mirror, rolled her eyes at Li Zishuan and said, "Husband, it's already morning. Shouldn't you be up to practice Taiji fist with us?" Nowadays, the immortal mirror was popular in Chang'an. It was difficult for many rich families to get a mirror, but the Li family didn't lack it. Not only did Han Yushi have a big mirror, but even Lan and Madame Li's rooms each had a big mirror. In this aspect, the Li family was richer than the palace because only Empress Zhang's son had a big mirror in the huge palace. Aya. Yes. I almost forgot about the important matter. Wife, did you slack off every morning when I wasn't around? Li Zishuan patted his head and quickly jumped off the bed. He hugged Han Yushi's slender waist from behind and gently blew into her ear. "Hee. Husband. Itchy. Stop fooling around." Han Yushi laughed coquettishly and quickly turned her head. She said angrily, "Who's lazy? In the whole family, other than you who knows how to be lazy, who can be lazier than you?" "Wow, my wife actually said that I'm lazy. Looks like my work last night wasn't good enough. Let's not go out for now. Let's do it again." Li Zishuan pretended to be angry and was about to attack her. "Ah, snake. Okay, snake. Help." At this moment, Xiao He's terrified scream came from outside the door. Li Zishuan shook his head. It looked like his good thing was going to be ruined. Taiji Palace. The morning court was in session. Ever since the court issued the decree to reduce taxes on raising chickens, every household in the Guangzhou region has raised an average of more than 70 chickens. Because many farmers have kept their eggs for hatching chickens, the price of eggs in all the provinces and counties has more than doubled. The price of eggs in Chang'an has risen the most. Merchants have heard news and have moved large amounts of chickens and eggs from the Jiangnan region. However, it is still a drop in the bucket. This old official earnestly requests Your Majesty to conscript ships to transport chickens and eggs from Jiangnan to stabilize the price of chickens and eggs. Fang Xuanling's loud voice echoed in the hall. "I second the motion." As soon as Fong Xianling finished speaking, Wei Jing jumped out and was the first to agree. His speed was so fast that everyone was dumbfounded. Cough, cough. The main reason was that eggs were too expensive in Chang, and recently, Wei Jing's source of income was also very small. Now, he could not eat eggs every day. Wei Yin was very depressed. Lier looked at Wei Zheng strangely, then nodded and said, "Approved. Minister Xiao, you will be in charge of this matter." Xiao Yu stepped forward with a straight face and said, "This old subject obeys the decree. Reporting. Reporting to your majesty, the 7 cultivators sect was destroyed overnight. General Niu has led the army back in triumph." At this time, a soldier in bright armor entered the hall and reported loudly. Immediately, there was a buzz of discussion in the hall. "Huh, General Niu is really amazing. He came back so quickly. Yep, General Niu and the others are still the best at war. He's much faster than Li Zhanshi. Previously, when Li Zishuan was defeated at Snake Spirit Mountain and returned to the court, Niu Jinda led 6,000 soldiers to attack Snake Spirit Mountain twice. Although many of them did not receive the news at first, they later heard some rumors from various places. Now, in just 3 days, Niu Jinda had returned in triumph. This made them praise Niu Jinda's godlike ability to command troops. At the same time, they criticized Li Zishuan's lack of experience in battle, which caused the court to lose soldiers and generals. "Good. Quickly summon General Niu to the palace." Lier's eyes flashed as he ordered in a deep voice. "Yes. This old subject greets your majesty." About half an hour later, Niu Jinda came to Taiji Palace in full armor and greeted Lier with cupped fists. "Dispense with the formalities." Lier stretched out his hand and said with a pleasant expression, "Jinda, you've worked hard. Snake Spirit Mountain is full of poisonous miasma, and the terrain is steep. It's easy to defend and hard to attack. Jinda, quickly tell me and the ministers how the remnants of the 7 cultivators sect were destroyed overnight." Niu Jinda straightened his body and said with a smile, "Your Majesty, this old subject didn't work hard. In fact, this old subject didn't contribute much to the destruction of the 7 cultivators sect." As soon as his voice fell, all the ministers were shocked. Only Lier sat on the throne with a happy expression, as if everything was under his control. "Why do you say that, Minister Niu?" Although he had already guessed the result, Lier still helped to ask the question in everyone's heart. "As your Majesty said earlier, the terrain of Snake Spirit Mountain is steep, and it's easy to defend and hard to attack. If we forcibly attack the mountain, although we can take down the 7 cultivators sect, we will inevitably suffer heavy losses. Therefore, this old subject led the army to surround Snake Spirit Mountain 3 days ago and didn't attack, waiting for Li Zishuan to come and fulfill his promise." At this point, many of the ministers were puzzled. Promise? What promise? Could it be related to the 7 cultivators sect? Fong Xianling, Zhang Sun Wuji, Qin Xiong, Cheng Yaojin, and the others just smiled and didn't say anything. They were all present that day, but they couldn't help but feel shocked. After listening to Niu Jinda's words, it seemed that Li Zishuan really did what he said. He single-handedly destroyed a sect that had a peak grandmaster and a 7 cultivators of true virtue serpent, whose strength was comparable to a great grandmaster. This kind of thing sounded crazy. Niu Jinda ignored everyone's doubts and continued. "Last night, this old subject was asleep, but I was awakened by a loud noise. This old subject went out of the tent to investigate and found that Snake Spirit Mountain had been struck by lightning and was accompanied by endless flames. In less than half an incense stick's worth of time, the mountain peak turned into a sea of fire, and I could faintly hear miserable screams coming from there. Today, at dawn, this old subject went up the mountain with the soldiers and found that all the houses of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect had collapsed. There were corpses everywhere on the ground, and some of them didn't even have a complete corpse. Broken limbs were everywhere. After Lu Baodan, a disciple of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect who was captured earlier, identified them. The sect master of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect, Batian, Elder Fei Shi, and the other 30 or so bastards were all killed. However, this old subject didn't find any trace of the giant beast of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect, the 7 cultivators of true virtue serpent. After Niu Jinda finished speaking, everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. No wonder this old man vaguely heard the sound of thunder last night. At that time, I thought I was dreaming. What exactly happened on Snake Spirit Mountain last night? How could it be so tragic? Who did this? How could they be so ruthless? General Niu just said that he would wait for Li Zhanshu to fulfill his promise. Could it be that Li Zhanshu did all this? Chapter 541. Everyone's guess is correct. 3 days ago, Li Zishuan made a military order in front of His Majesty. He said that he would wipe out the 7 cultivators of true virtue within 3 days and take revenge for the soldiers who died earlier. Last night, he did it. The 7 cultivators sect has been wiped out, and the main culprit and the remaining evildoers have all been executed. This old subject congratulates His Majesty for having such an outstanding talent in Great Tang. In the Taiji Palace, when Niu Jinda heard the discussion of the ministers in the hall, he smiled and said loudly to Lier, "General Niu, your words are biased." While everyone was still in a daze, a fat, middle-aged official wearing a scarlet robe stepped out of the crowd and cupped his hands. General Niu only heard the thunder last night, but it doesn't mean that Li Zhanshu did it alone. Moreover, as far as I know, the Snake Spirit Mountain is hundreds of feet high. How could Li Zhanshu climb to the top of the mountain and release the thunder at night alone? How is such a method different from that of an immortal? And Li Zhanshu is just like us with a mortal body. This kind of battle record is definitely not done by Li Zhanshu. Maybe the 7 cultivators sect did all kinds of evil and the heavens couldn't stand it anymore. So they sent down the thunder as punishment. Niu Jinda narrowed his eyes and recognized the official in front of him as Chamberlain Chui Shanfu. He smiled meaningfully and said, "Oh, has Chamberlain Chui been to the Snake Spirit Mountain before? Otherwise, how could you be so familiar with the situation there? To tell you the truth, if it weren't for Gudu's letter, this old man wouldn't have known that there was such a poisonous mountain in the depths of the Qinling Mountains." The rest of the people originally wanted to agree with Chui Shanfu, but after hearing this, they immediately shut their mouths and cast doubtful looks at Chui Shanfu. Chui Shanfu's eyelids twitched, and he hurriedly said, "General Niu, you don't know, but this Chui has a distant cousin who often travels around to sell goods. He once got lost in the Qinling Mountains and happened to pass by the Snake Spirit Mountain. What this official just said was all from him." Niu Jinda said with a faint smile, "Haha, what a coincidence. However, what I said just now was not all speculation. If you don't believe that Snake Spirit Mountain was destroyed by Li Zishuan alone, you can go to the entrance of the Li family in Yongla Lane and take a look after the court. The corpse of 7th cultivator of true virtue on the Serpent Spirit Mountain is still there to dry. Although I don't know what kind of method he used to transport the great serpent of 7th cultivator of true virtue, which is 30 feet long and weighs several hundred kilograms, from the midst of an army of tens of thousands of soldiers without anyone noticing. But I'm sure you won't have any doubts after seeing the spectacle of heavenly thunders and earthly fires, right?" Hearing this, Chui Shanfu's face suddenly became extremely ugly, but the other ministers couldn't help but exclaim. Cheng Yaojin laughed and said, "Good, there will be snake meat to eat. I, old Cheng, have eaten all kinds of snake meat, but I have never touched the meat of the great serpent of 7th cultivator of true virtue. Now, I have to taste it properly." Lier secretly rolled his eyes. He then turned to Zhao Song, who had long been shocked out of his wits, and ordered, "Go and summon Li Zishuan for an audience." Oh, this old servant obeys." Zhao Song came back to his senses and hurriedly responded. Then he walked out of the hall. As soon as he walked out of the palace, he saw a person running over and saying, "Old Zhao, Bad news. Li Jianshi is missing. He's not in the workshop. The person who sent him breakfast just now found that the Drunken Wind Pavilion was empty. Everyone in the workshop is now looking for Li Jianshi. The person who came was the head of the spies that Zhao Song had planted around the workshop. Zhao Song said unhappily, "Idiot, follow me to Yongla Lane." The head of the spies was dumbfounded. He scratched his head and muttered to himself, Why are we going to Yongla Lane? Don't tell me Li Jianshi can fly home." However, no one paid attention to his muttering. After Zhao Song finished speaking, he had already walked far away. Wow, what a big snake. This snake looks so ferocious. It actually has 7 heads. This beast probably eats people. Look at how thick its body is. In front of the Li residence, there was a lively scene. Earlier, Li Zishuan teased the frightened Xiaohe. Then, he ordered the servants to carry the corpse of the 7th cultivator of true virtue to the front of the Li residence and set up a special shelf. This way of placing the corpse made the 7th cultivator of true virtue look even more ferocious, somewhat resembling its might when it was alive. Dear neighbors, the people of the 7th cultivator of true virtue try to harm me twice in a row, wanting to kill me and my wife. They even tried to assassinate the ministers of the imperial court in broad daylight. The 7th cultivator of true virtue is disregarding the law. Therefore, 6 days ago, I received His Majesty's decree to attack the 7th cultivator of true virtue together with the commander of the Northern Yamen's imperial army, Dugo Hexen. As for the details, you should have heard my wife mention them before. We could have taken them down in one fell swoop. But at the last moment, the elder of the 7th cultivator of true virtue, Flying Snake, released this ferocious beast and charged into the army, killing 215 heroic souls. In order to avoid more casualties, I had no choice but to order a retreat. But good and evil will eventually be repaid, and the heavenly Tao will reincarnate. Last night, I attacked the Serpent Spirit Mountain alone and destroyed the 7th cultivator of true virtue in one fell swoop with the help of the heavenly lightning. The sect master, elders, and disciples of the sect were all killed, and the enmity of 215 heroic souls was finally avenged. This is the consequence of being so vicious and disobeying the imperial court's decree. Li Zishuan stood in front of the door and shouted at the crowd. What the hell? I didn't hear wrong, did I? Li Xianen destroyed an entire sect by himself. That's too scary. Not only did they have many experts in their sect, but they also had a 7-headed snake. How did Li Xianen do it? Hiss, that's too ruthless. But heroes really come from the young. Li Xianen is so young, but his martial arts are already so good. Master Li gave birth to a good son. He's really good at both civil and martial arts. Looking at the red-lipped, white-toothed, and seemingly harmless young man in front of the gate of the Li residence with a relaxed smile on his face, everyone couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. They thought to themselves, this man is so ruthless. He wiped out an entire sect by himself. We can't afford to offend him. We can't afford to provoke him. Li Zishuan was very satisfied with the result. He glanced at the crowd and pointed at the 7th cultivator of true virtue, hanging on the frame, saying, I, Li Zishuan, don't like to cause trouble, but I'm not afraid of trouble either. If someone wants to harm my family again, I won't hesitate to kill them no matter how powerful they are. Even if I have to chase them to the ends of the earth, I'll kill them. The ordinary people shrunk their necks and couldn't help but ridicule him in their hearts. You're going to destroy an entire sect just because you don't like it. Who would dare to provoke you in the future? However, the complexions of several men changed, and they quietly retreated. Li Zishuan smiled and didn't care about them. Li Jianshi, His Majesty summons you immediately. Chapter 542. In front of the Li residence. When Li Zishuan saw Zhao Song and the others, he was stunned. Zhao Song was Li Heir's most trusted eunuch. Why would he personally come to deliver the decree? Butler Zhao, May I know why your majesty has summoned me? Seeing the arrival of the angels, the crowd in front of the Li residence dispersed. Li Zishuan braced himself and greeted them. Now, among the people he didn't want to see the most, Li Er was definitely at the top. Although the bombing last night was very satisfying, Li Zishuan had a headache when he thought about how he would have to clean up his mess later. After all, he was now in a feudal monarch's dynasty. He had used supernatural powers. If he didn't explain it clearly, it would be easy for Li Er to be suspicious. Zhao Song first glanced at the seventh cultivator of true virtue that was hung up in front of the Li residence. He could feel the remaining bloodthirsty and ferocious aura on the snake's body. Even Zhao Song, who had been in the Grandmaster realm for many years, could not help but be shocked. He secretly wondered how Li Zishuan defeated this giant snake. After a while, he said, "Mr. Li, you must be joking. We are just following His Majesty's orders. How can we guess His Majesty's intentions? You'd better come with us to meet His Majesty." Li Zishuan was speechless. This was obvious, yet Zhao Song still tried to hide it. He could only say goodbye to his family and ride Big White to the palace with Zhao Song. On the way, Zhao Song's gaze involuntarily fell on Li Zishuan several times, causing Li Zishuan to feel uncomfortable. Finally, Zhao Song smiled casually and said, "Mr. Li, you are very capable. That seven-headed snake alone may not be a match for 1,000 soldiers. Mr. Li, you single-handedly destroyed the 7 cultivator of true virtue sect. You are indeed a young hero." The corner of Li Zishuan's mouth twitched. He cupped his hands and said, "Butler Zhao, you flatter me. I'm just borrowing some of my master's shadow to do whatever I want. Please don't laugh at me." Shadow? Zhao Song's curiosity was piqued, and he asked, "Could it be that what happened last night had something to do with your master?" Li Zishuan nodded and said seriously, "Of course. Otherwise, how could this kid be so capable?" Seeing that Zhao Song wanted to get to the bottom of the matter, Li Zishuan hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Butler Zhao, it's best that you don't ask about the details first. We'll be meeting His Majesty soon, and His Majesty will definitely ask about it. You'll know then." He laughed evilly in his heart. "Who asked you to be so unkind to me just now? Now, I'll whet your appetite." Just as Zhao Song's breath came up, it was blocked. He was really choked. However, he thought that Li Zishuan's words made sense, so he nodded gloomily and did not ask further. Inside the Taiji Palace. After Zhao Song left, the ministers in the imperial court were supposed to continue discussing state affairs. However, after listening to Niu Jinda's description, they were all anxious to know what relationship Li Zishuan had with the destruction of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect. Or rather, how did Li Zishuan destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect single-handedly? At this time, no one was in the mood to discuss state affairs. They were all silently waiting for Li Zishuan, the person involved, to come over. However, there was one exception, and that was Minister Cui Shanfu of the Honglu Temple. Ever since he went for wool and came home shorn, he had been keeping silent. Later, when he heard Niu Jinda swear that Li Zishuan was the one who destroyed the Snake Spirit Mountain, and that there was conclusive evidence, his face turned as black as the bottom of a pot, and he seemed to be very anxious. In the main hall, a few ministers were reporting irrelevant topics, and Li Er also gave some irrelevant responses from the Dragon Throne. Finally, a sharp voice came from outside. "Crown Prince Zhan Shi, Li Zishuan, requests an audience," Li Er said in a deep voice. "Enter." A moment later, Li Zishuan walked in with his head held high. "That man is here. The man who destroyed the entire sect is here." Wherever Li Zishuan went, the ministers would avoid him. They did not know if it was an illusion, but many of them felt that the Li Zishuan today was very different from before. This was because there was a trace of blood on his body, and he was more decisive in killing. This kind of aura was only felt by Cheng Yaojin and the others many years ago. However, these old generals were now old, and their aura was much more stable, unlike the past. They did not expect that Li Zishuan would also start to have this kind of terrifying aura. This humble subject pays respect to your majesty. As soon as Li Zixuan came in, Li Er's pupils couldn't help but shrink. What a heavy, murderous aura. At this time, he saw Li Zixuan come forward and salute him. He nodded slightly and said, "You may arise." After Li Zixuan straightened his body, Li Er said in a deep voice, "Li Zixuan, the Seven Cultivators sect was attacked by heavenly lightning and earthly fire last night, and the entire sect was destroyed. Was it related to you?" As soon as his voice fell, all the ministers looked at Li Zixuan. Although Niu Jinda had already said it with certainty, they still wanted to hear what Li Zixuan had to say. Replying to your majesty, "It was indeed this humble subject's doing. The Seven Cultivators sect has done all kinds of evil, and they tried to assassinate me twice. They have no respect for the law, and they gather in the mountains and forests. How are they different from bandits? A few days ago, they killed 215 soldiers of the imperial court. What this humble subject did yesterday was only to fulfill the promise this humble subject made a few days ago, and more importantly, to avenge the soldiers. At this point, there was nothing to hide, and there was no need to hide. Many people like to pick on the weak. Although Li Zixuan had only been in Tang for less than a year, he didn't want to be a pushover. Although this matter might arouse Li Er's suspicion, it could also serve as a deterrent to those who had evil intentions towards him. He wasn't someone who could be easily bullied. "It's fine if you want to harm me, but you must be prepared to have your whole family killed." Li Zixuan wasn't a bloodthirsty person, but he was a person who was afraid of trouble. If he was bullied by cats and dogs every day, wouldn't it be very troublesome for him to slap their faces one by one? As soon as Li Zixuan finished speaking, most people's expressions changed, and they secretly thought that this young man was really ruthless. Kong Ingda frowned and stepped forward. "Mr. Li, I'm afraid this is inappropriate. The sages often say that we must maintain a benevolent heart. Although the Seven Cultivators sect has committed terrible crimes, you only need to kill the main culprit. Why do you have to exterminate the entire sect and kill them all? This is against the will of the heavens." Although Li Zixuan had left the Imperial College and established his own school, Kong Ingda still regarded Li Zixuan as a junior. His words were directed at the matter, not the person. He was only advising Li Zixuan not to kill too heavily. When he bombed the Seven Cultivators sect, Li Zixuan did indeed hesitate whether he would kill the innocent by doing so. But every time he thought about how Zhao Siwei and the others arranged the Modeo formation at the last moment to cover him and Dugu Xine's retreat, all the hesitation in Li Zixuan's heart was swept away. If they had to blame someone, they could only blame those people for joining the wrong sect. After the incident, he also expected that his action of exterminating the entire sect would attract the dissatisfaction of some Confucian defenders. But he didn't expect that the first one to jump out would be Kong Ingda. Li Zixuan paused for a moment and then retorted, "The will of the heavens? What is the will of the heavens? Watching your brothers die tragically and not taking revenge. Is that the will of the heavens? Allowing the wicked to go unpunished and continue to do evil. Is that the will of the heavens? Bullshit. When I, Li Zixuan, do things, I don't let down the heavens, I don't let down the earth, I don't let down the emperor, and I don't let down my brothers. I'm benevolent. I'm only benevolent to my own people. Besides, those 215 soldiers died on Snake Spirit Mountain without leaving behind their corpses. Who in the Seven Cultivators sect would dare to claim to be innocent? Since they chose to fight the imperial court together with Inbatian, they should be prepared to die. Chapter 543. Within Taiji Palace, Li Zixuan's words caused Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, Zhangsen Wuji, and the other civil officials to frown, while the military officials nodded repeatedly. Cheng Yaojin was even more excessive. This old fellow walked over with a hearty laugh and patted Li Zixuan's shoulder with all his might, saying, "Ah, good. Well said. This is a good man of great Tang. How can benevolence and righteousness protect great Tang? Only by using the blade and blood can great Tang not be bullied. Your Majesty, this child is a good seedling. Li Zishuan grinned. This old fellow really did not know how to control his strength. If the ground under his feet was a little looser, Cheng Yaojin's 2 slaps would have planted him into the ground. Kong Yingda was so angry that his beard blew up. He scolded, "Preposterous! All preposterous! Duke of Lu, as an elder, how can you teach your juniors to be bloodthirsty? Li Xianin has killed so many people at such a young age. What good will it do him in the future?" Li Zishuan wanted to retort, but Cheng Yaojin stared at him. So what if he's young? Xiao Xin killed people who deserved to be killed. What's wrong with that? Back then, Hui Tubing attacked the Xiongnu in the north when he was 17. Why don't you say that he's young? With Cheng Yaojin speaking up, Li Zishuan was happy to watch the show from the side. However, after hearing Cheng Yaojin's words, he could not help but feel happy. Cheng Yaojin, this boorish person, also knows how to quote classics. Duke of Lu, you are wrong to say that. Chancellor Kong is doing this for the good of Li Xianan. How can you not distinguish between right and wrong? Furthermore, Hui Tsubing is such a hero. It's already amazing that there's one in 1,000 years. How can everyone be like Hui Tsubing? Cui Shanfu saw the opportunity and said in a weird tone. Cheng Yaojin curled his lips. I'm arguing with Chancellor Kong. Why are you interrupting? Cui Shanfu's face turned red. You. What about me? Cheng Yaojin glared at him. Other people might be afraid of the Cui family, but Cheng Yaojin wasn't. He was now part of the new aristocratic group, so he wasn't afraid of these old aristocratic families. Shut up. Seeing that the 2 of them were about to fight, Li Er knitted his brows and made the final decision. The 7 cultivators of true virtue sect has no respect for the imperial court and no respect for the law of the country. If they're destroyed, then so be it. Li Zishuan, come out and tell me, how did you single-handedly destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue? As soon as this question was asked, everyone quieted down. Cheng Yaojin, Kong Yingda, and Cui Shanfu, these 3 people who were about to fight, stopped arguing. They all turned their attention to this side, because this question that Li Er asked was a question that everyone was concerned about. Others wanted to listen, but Li Zishuan was too lazy to talk about it, because there were too many things that needed to be avoided and paid attention to. If he didn't pay attention, it could cause very serious consequences. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Li Zishuan touched his nose and said embarrassedly, Your Majesty, it's a long story. You should discuss state affairs with the other ministers in this precious time. Otherwise, if you miss a drought or flood, how many innocent people will die? It won't be too late for me to talk about this later. Talk about it later? After hearing these words, all the ministers couldn't help but curse in their hearts. They had been waiting for an answer for so long, but he said that he would talk about it later. Later, your sister. The corner of Li Er's mouth twitched, and he said angrily, Shut up. Say it now. Li Zishuan thought to himself, You already told me to shut up, so what else can I say? However, if he continued to act coquettishly at this time, Li Zishuan might go berserk. Therefore, Li Zishuan could only start to speak. Then I'll talk about it. Your Majesty, you also know that many brothers were sacrificed in the first battle of Snake Spirit Mountain. At that time, I was filled with grief and indignation and had always wanted to avenge them. Therefore, I made the agreement that I would destroy a mountain sect alone. In the next 3 days, I worked hard day and night to avenge those soldiers who died. In 3 days, I did 2 things. Li Er frowned when he heard this. Li Zishuan said all this at the beginning. In his opinion, it was all nonsense. If he were a modern person, he would definitely say at this moment, Old fart, stop scratching. Hurry up and get to the point. However, when he heard the last sentence, Li Er suddenly became interested and began to listen carefully. The first thing is to build mountaineering tools. Everyone should know that Snake Spirit Mountain is relatively high and the mountain path is narrow. If we set up traps and checkpoints in advance, it will definitely be easy to defend and difficult to attack. I thought about it. Since it's not easy to go up the mountain from the mountain path, I'll go up from the sky. Li Er said suspiciously, The sky? Don't tell me you're planning to fly up there. Although Li Zixuan was annoyed that he was interrupted, the person who interrupted him was Lier, so it was naturally a different matter. He nodded and flattered. Your Majesty is truly wise. That's right, I was planning to build a tool that could fly up Snake Spirit Mountain. In the end, I succeeded. I relied on this tool to reach the peak of Snake Spirit Mountain and launched a surprise attack on the 7th cultivator of true virtue. Buzz, buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was stunned. In this era, although there were some people with high martial arts who could rely on Qigong to jump 30 feet high, that was far from flying in the sky. The sky was sacred and mysterious to the ancient people. Now, there is actually someone who could rely on a tool to fly to the peak of a mountain that was hundreds of feet high. This kind of thing subverted too many people's understanding. What kind of tool is so amazing? It can actually fly to a height of hundreds of feet? Did Li Xianji really fly to the peak of the mountain? Can a mortal fly so high? After some of the officials recovered from the shock, they couldn't help but whisper to each other. Li Zixuan cleared his throat and continued. In order to prevent this secret from being leaked to other countries, I will personally present the specific method of building this flying tool to your Majesty later. As the saying goes, the higher one stands, the further one can see. With this tool, our Tang Empire will always be able to predict the enemy's moves when we fight in the future. Good. Li Jing couldn't help but laugh and say, Your Majesty, Little Xian's actions can be considered as a meritorious service to our Tang Empire. However, this kind of tool must be in the hands of our Tang Empire. We can't let other countries learn it, or else we will be in a passive position. How could Lier not know the importance of this matter? He nodded and said to Li Zixuan, if this thing is really as useful as you say, I will remember your merit. Li Zixuan curled his lips and thought to himself, Old Li, you owe me a lot of merits. When will you reward me for all my merits? Thank you, your Majesty. Although that was what he thought in his heart, Li Zixuan definitely wouldn't say that out loud. He wasn't a fool after all. Continue speaking. Tell me about the second thing you did. Chapter 544. The second matter? Upon hearing Lier's question, the ministers in the hall recovered from their shock. Anyone with a bit of brain knew that flying to the top of the Snake Spirit Mountain was only the first step. The most important thing was how Li Zixuan single-handedly destroyed the entire 7 cultivators of true virtue. Such destructive power was like the work of a true immortal. They really couldn't figure out how Li Zixuan, who had a mortal body, was able to do it. Li Zixuan's heart tightened. He secretly thought that what was going to happen was going to happen. He glanced at the curious babies in the hall and said, After the mountaineering tools were made, this little minister was thinking about how to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue. Although I've been practicing martial arts since I was a child, I've only just stepped into the Grandmaster realm. Cheng Yaojin, Niu Jinda, Qin Xiong, and the others almost vomited blood after hearing this. They all want to drag Li Zixuan over and beat him up. What did he mean by, I've only just stepped into the Grandmaster realm? How could these old generals, who broke through to the Grandmaster realm in their 30s or 40s, live? The sect master and the elders of the 7 cultivators of true virtue were all martial arts experts above the Grandmaster realm. Moreover, they had a 7-headed giant snake whose strength was comparable to my master's. If we fought with brute force, this little minister was definitely not their match. However, this little minister had no choice but to take revenge for the 215 soldiers. During those 2 days, this little minister tossed and turned in bed, thinking about it day and night. Finally, this little minister remembered that before my master passed away, he gave me something. What is it? Lier knitted his brows and asked in a deep voice. Among the people in the hall, Lier's understanding of Li Zixuan was definitely at the forefront. After hearing Li Zixuan's words just now, Lier muttered in his heart. He felt that there must be something wrong with this kid's words. Li Zixuan raised his head and closed his eyes, as if he was recalling something. Then he said with a sad face, Before my master died, he compressed all his true chi into a fist-sized iron ball. This ball was made of extraterrestrial iron and was extremely hard. Later, when my master gave me the Jinchi iron ball, he also taught me a method to detonate the Junchi inside the iron ball. He also told me that if I were to encounter a life or death crisis in the future, I could detonate the Junchi inside the iron ball, which could instantly turn all the enemies within a radius of 200 feet into ashes. However, this method could easily harm others and oneself. But this time, with the help of a flying mountaineering tool, he was able to avoid the explosion of the true chi iron ball. Last night, after I flew to the summit of the Spirit Snake Mountain, I detonated the true chi iron ball left behind by my master and threw it down. After a loud explosion, the 7 cultivators of true virtue was reduced to ashes in an instant. This is the heavenly lightning and earthly fire General Ox saw at the foot of the mountain. After saying that, Li Zixuan took a deep breath. From an outsider's point of view, he was grieving because he thought of his deceased master. However, the truth was that he was muttering in his heart, "That's right. I'm sorry, my great master. This is a serious matter, so I have to ask you to come out and be my shield again. Next time when I go to Mount Longhu, I'll bring you some good wine and burn a few paper wives for you." The more Li Er listened, the more he felt that it was strange. Why did this thing sound like a plot from a novel? He couldn't help but frown and scold. Nonsense. How come I've never heard of anyone who can compress true chi into an iron ball? Take out another iron ball and show it to me. Li Zixuan couldn't help but feel his teeth ache. Others didn't suspect anything, so why did old Li blindly join the fun? In the end, wasn't I hiding the truth for the sake of the imperial court? In fact, Li Zixuan's nonsense just now had attracted the attention of many officials in the imperial court. They didn't have too many doubts. In their view, if Li Zixuan could even do something as inconceivable as flying in the sky, what was so shocking about his master, who was rumored to be like a god, making an exploding iron ball with his lifetime's worth of cultivation? Hearing Li Zixuan's question, many people couldn't help but quickly retreat. A few ministers who were closer to Li Zixuan ran away quickly because they were afraid that Li Zixuan would really take out another true chi iron ball. Li Zixuan didn't expect that his nonsense would have such an effect. He awkwardly coughed and said, "Your Majesty, this kind of heaven-defying object is not easy to make. This is because a large amount of true chi must be fully compressed in order to make this thing have a large destructive range. My master exhausted all his skills and only managed to make one. Therefore, I don't have anything like that with me. However, this thing does exist. If you don't believe me, I can't make a true chi iron ball for you." This was considered a scoundrel, but Li Zixuan really had no other way. The Jinchi steel ball was the best excuse he could think of in a short period of time. Even though there might be loopholes in it, he had no other way. He could only resign himself to fate. No matter what, he couldn't reveal the fact that he knew how to make explosives in front of so many people. However, even Li Zixuan himself didn't expect that when he resigned himself to his fate, he would actually be blessed with good fortune. Someone that Li Zixuan had never expected would actually stand up for him. "Your Majesty." This old servant once read in an ancient book that martial arts experts at the peak of the great Grandmaster realm can indeed condense their genuine chi. Although the genuine chi iron ball that Li Xianin just mentioned sounds incredible, theoretically speaking, it is possible. However, if it is put into practice, it is extremely dangerous. I'm afraid that only an expert like spiritual master Ling Su would dare to be so daring as to dance on the tip of a knife. The person who came out was Zhao Song, the man with the highest martial strength in the entire hall. Cough. He shouldn't be considered a man. Ever since he had returned to Taiji Palace, Zhao Song had been thinking about what Li Zixuan meant by borrowing some of my master's shadow. When Li Zixuan had explained the entire incident from beginning to end, Zhao Song was suddenly enlightened. At the same time, he couldn't help but wonder if Li Zixuan's method of compressing vital chi and detonating it would work. After he had figured everything out, Zhao Song's heart was suddenly enlightened. At this moment, he was so impressed by Li Zixuan's master, spiritual master Ling Xiu, that he would prostrate himself in admiration. Cough, cough. Spiritual master Ling Xiu, who was in the tomb, expressed his innocence. All of this was caused by Li Zixuan. Actually, this so-called true qi iron ball or true qi bomb was just something that Li Zixuan made up based on some fantasy novels that he read in his previous life. It was a little like Xiao Yan's Buddha's angry lotus flame in battle through the heavens. The difference was that the angry lotus flame was fused with a heavenly flame, compressed it, and then thrown into a group of enemies to explode. However, the general principle was similar. Originally, it was an excuse that he came up with at the last minute. Now that Zhao Song had explained it, Li Zixuan felt that he was really a genius. When the officials heard Li Zixuan say that there was only one true qi iron ball, they all heaved a sigh of relief. This thing was so awesome that anyone would be afraid of it. Now that they heard Zhao Song's explanation, most of them no longer had any doubts about Li Zixuan's ability to kill Qi Xiu alone. However, Li Er still felt that something was wrong. He frowned and said, but came to an abrupt end. It was because he saw Li Zixuan winking at him. At this moment, Li Er was really angry and amused. He was the emperor, but there was actually an official who dared to wink at him? Then this matter will end here. Officials, if you have something to discuss, please report. If not, the court is dismissed. After all, Li Er was not stupid. He thought of something and said loudly. Chapter 545. Hearing about such a bizarre battle during the morning court assembly, many of the ministers were satisfied. Cheng Yaojin was beaming with joy, his face extremely proud. It was as if Li Zixuan was his son and had done such a great thing, and he was also proud of it. Other than Li Er, who didn't believe Li Zixuan's words, there was another person in the hall. That was Li Changxian, who had been standing below Li Er to listen to the morning court session. The reason why he didn't believe Li Zixuan was because when he went to the workshop a few days ago, he heard a loud bang. Although the power wasn't enough to shake the earth, it was still shocking. Li Changxian felt that the thing was a miniature version of the weapon Li Zixuan used on Snake Spirit Mountain. Li Zixuan just said that spiritual master Ling Xiu only gave him one true qi iron ball. Either Li Zixuan was lying, and there was more than one true qi iron ball, or the thing that destroyed Snake Spirit Mountain was not a true qi iron ball at all. Although he knew that Li Zixuan must be hiding something, Li Changxian did not expose his good brother. He only looked at Li Zixuan with a faint smile. Seeing that no one in the hall had anything to report, Li Er got up and prepared to leave. Zhao Song understood and said in a sharp voice, "Court assembly is dismissed. Farewell, your majesty." The ministers bowed. After Li Er left, other than a few old generals who had a good relationship with him, the rest deliberately kept a distance from Li Zixuan. Cui Shanfu's expression was complicated. There was fear, relief, and resentment. He glanced at Li Zixuan and left in a hurry. "Mr. Li, His Majesty has an order for you to go to the Sweet Dew Hall for an audience." With no one bothering him, Li Zixuan was happy to be free. He wanted to chat with Cheng Yaojin as they left the palace, but Zhao Song came over and said. Li Zixuan was speechless. He had not even walked down the stairs of the Taiji Palace, and Li Er had asked Zhao Song to call him. Old Li must be in a hurry. Looks like I can't escape this calamity. All right, I'll go to the Sweet Dew Hall now. Thank you for speaking up for me just now, Chief Zhao. Li Zixuan calmed himself down and said reluctantly, "Escape is impossible." However, his last sentence of gratitude was sincere. Zhao Song's explanation in the court just now was more or less of a help. "Huh, Mr. Li, you must be joking. I'm just telling the truth. I'm not helping anyone," Zhao Song said calmly as he led Li Zixuan in the direction of Taiji Palace. Li Zixuan smiled and didn't say anything. With his current status, there was no need for him to deliberately make friends or curry favor with anyone. On the other hand, we have to thank Li Xianan. Spiritual Master Ling Su is a genius, to be able to think of such an unimaginable method. I've benefited greatly from it. Although I can't condense my chi outside my body, I can try compressing it inside my body. Perhaps I can break through the shackles of my realm. After walking for a while, Zhao Song suddenly stopped in his tracks and said to Li Zixuan, "Gosh, why are you so unrestrained?" Li Zixuan's jaw dropped. 10,000 alpacas galloped across his heart. This Zhao Song was truly a lunatic. In his previous life, Li Zixuan had never come into contact with martial arts, so he naturally didn't know about these twists and turns. However, in this life, he was a martial arts master, so of course he knew how powerful it was. If he didn't dare to do something like compressing his chi, because it could easily cause his meridians to explode and turn him into a cripple. What he said just now was just an excuse to cover up the explosion on Snake Spirit Mountain. He never thought that Zhao Song, who looked honest on the surface, had such a reckless heart. Supervisor Zhao, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but the risks of compressing the genuine chi far outweigh the benefits. Back then, my master abandoned everything to do this at the last moment of his life. You still have to consider it carefully. Zhao Song had more or less helped him. Li Zixuan didn't want Zhao Song, a great master, to become a cripple because of his nonsense. If Li Er knew, he would probably mess with him. On the path of martial arts, I definitely can't go as far as spiritual master Ling Su. In the end, I like to be overcautious and timid. This time, no matter what, I have to try it myself. Zhao Song said with a smile, as if he was touched. Your humble servant pays his respects to your majesty. After chatting with Zhao Song for a while, the two of them arrived at the Sweet Dew Hall. Li Zixuan bowed to Li Er as he prayed in his heart that the stubborn old man, Zhao Song, wouldn't explode in the future. You sure run fast. Did you forget the promise you made in the imperial court? Li Er waved his hand and said in a bad mood. His hands were itching now, mainly because Li Zixuan was asking for a beating. Li Zixuan hurriedly smiled and said, I didn't forget. I didn't forget. How would I dare to forget? Here, your majesty, this is the tool I used to fly up the Snake Spirit Mountain last night. The blueprints are all here. As Li Zixuan spoke, he took out a stack of blueprints from his sleeve. These were the blueprints he had drawn in the workshop for the past 3 days. Li Er didn't put on airs and personally went forward to take them. He casually flipped through them and looked at Li Zixuan and asked, "This mushroom-like thing can fly up to a height of 1,000 feet?" Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Of course. If your majesty doesn't believe me, you can go to my house to take a look in the future. That thing is still in my courtyard." Li Er was furious when he heard that. "Bastard, why didn't you keep such a national treasure well and leave it in your courtyard? If it was stolen by thieves and fell into the hands of other countries, how many of our Tang Empire soldiers would die in vain? When you go back, immediately send that thing to the palace. Since you can't keep it well, I'll keep it for you." Openly robbing, and it was a righteous robbery. How could Li Zixuan, who had dealt with Li Er so many times, not know that the latter half of Li Er's sentence was the main point? He hurriedly said, Don't. Your Majesty, I will definitely keep that thing well in the future. If you really want that thing, can't you ask the craftsman to make another one according to the blueprints? Oh, right. If the craftsman can't understand this blueprint, you can ask Qing Ke to teach them. Qing Ke knows this. Get lost. At the mention of Li Tai, Li Er was even more furious. He pointed at Li Zixuan and scolded, "You brat, you still have the nerve to mention Qing Quebec. I originally wanted him to learn from you, but now he has been bewitched by you to build a house in the Cloud Mountain. My son is actually building a house for you. You're getting bolder and bolder." Chapter 546. Inside the Sweet Nectar Hall. Seeing Li Er's furious appearance, the palace maids and eunuchs at the side hurriedly lowered their heads. Previously, they had only seen Wei Zheng, who could make Li Er lose his composure. They didn't expect that today there would be another Li Zixuan. Sure enough, heroes came from the youth. Cough, cough. Your Majesty, please calm down. Building a house is also a kind of learning. There's a saying in Taoism called entering the world to cultivate. If Prince Wei stays in the palace for a long time, it won't be good for his character growth. I believe your majesty understands this point. Otherwise, you wouldn't have allowed Qin Ke to go to Cloud Mountain. Huh. Lier laughed. He didn't agree or disagree. He thought for a while, and then said meaningfully, "Let's not talk about this for now. Is there something you forgot to tell me?" Li Zishuan was stunned. Then, he suddenly thought of something and immediately put on a fawning expression. "Ayaya, your majesty, you are too polite. This humble subject only presented a few blueprints, and you want to reward this humble subject heavily. In fact, this humble subject will be grateful if you reward me with something else. Why do you want this humble subject to personally choose the reward? As the saying goes, thunder and rain are the grace of the emperor. This humble subject..." "Shut up." Lier couldn't listen to him anymore. His expression was as if he was a dog. He said angrily, "When did this humble subject mention a reward to you? This humble subject is asking you to truthfully tell me the method you use to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue." He didn't expect that there would be such a shameless and daring person in this world. He was both angry and amused. So it's not a reward." Li Zishuan was stunned. He muttered, touched his nose, and said embarrassedly, "Cough, cough. The method to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue was an iron ball of true qi. Didn't this humble subject just say it in the imperial court?" Lier glared at him and said angrily, "Humph. You can fool others with that nonsense, but don't think you can fool me. Quickly tell me the truth. You brat, you're getting bolder and bolder. You even dare to lie to me." If someone else dared to be so naughty in front of Lier would have long ordered people to drag him out and behead him. However, this person was Li Zishuan. Therefore, Lier felt helpless. Li Zishuan was so capable that any monarch who had slightly opened his burning point would choose to put him in an important position. Of course, Lier was no exception. Feeling Li Zishuan's aggressive gaze, Li Zishuan shrunk his neck and said hesitantly, "Actually, the thing that I used to bomb the 7 cultivators of true virtue that night was a type of strong gunpowder. The general principle behind it is similar to that iron ball made of true qi. The only difference is that it wasn't made by my master, but by me." Hearing this, Lier's breathing suddenly quickened. As expected. I've long guessed that it's impossible for there to be only one of these things. You can definitely make more. However, what is a strong gunpowder? At this time, the term gunpowder had yet to appear. The person who truly defined gunpowder was Song Yingxing of the Ming Dynasty. He wrote in the Heavenly Works of Creation, "Gunpowder. Gunpowder is mainly made of saltpeter and sulfur, supplemented by plant ash. Saltpeter is of the extreme yin nature, while sulfur is of the extreme yang nature. When these two divine objects meet, there is no gap between them. When they appear, people will be shocked and their souls will scatter." However, the appearance of gunpowder could be traced back to the spring and autumn period. According to the Fanzi Yeren, gunpowder was already used in China during the spring and autumn period. According to Fanzi Yeren, gunpowder was already used in the common people's livelihood. Of course, gunpowder at that time only referred to saltpeter. This was because saltpeter could directly ignite or explode when it collided with organic matter. When it came to gunpowder that was slightly more powerful, it had to be refined into a pill alchemist. This was because the original use of gunpowder in China was to be used in the fire process of refining pills. In ancient times, when it came to poisonous metals such as sulfur and arsenic, they would often burn them before using them. The word burn meant to subdue them. To make the toxicity lose or reduce, this procedure was called fire suppression. After Li Zishuan heard Lier's words, he choked for a moment. What did he mean by, "I already guessed that there was more than one"? After all this time, he was tricked. "Your Majesty, gunpowder is a medicine that can be ignited by sparks, flames, and so on. When these things burn fiercely in a very narrow space, it will cause an explosion. This can actually be used as the ignition agent in the fire suppression procedure of Taoist alchemy." After cursing Li Zixuan several times in his heart for having little Gigi, Li Zixuan gloomily explained. When Li Er heard the word alchemy, his eyes suddenly lit up. He asked, "You also know alchemy?" Li Zixuan looked at Li Er's expression and knew what he was thinking. He hurriedly said, "Of course I don't know this. My master once said that the art of alchemy is the biggest scam of Taoism. Back then, ever since the first emperor recruited alchemists to refine the elixir of immortality, the world has been changing dynasties for nearly 800 years, but there has never been anyone who can live forever. This is just a scam to confuse people." After saying so much, Li Zixuan still didn't want Li Er to go astray. Li Er couldn't help but blush when his thoughts were seen through. After he calmed down, he said with a straight face again, "I also understand that the art of alchemy is just a small matter, but this gunpowder is so important to my Tang Empire. Why didn't you tell the truth in the imperial court just now?" Li Er stared sharply at Li Zixuan's face and asked word by word. Li Zixuan's heart tightened. He knew that the most important test was coming. He hurriedly stopped smiling and said seriously, "Your Majesty, the power of this gunpowder is enough to destroy the world. It is precisely because it is so important to the country that this humble subject doesn't dare to reveal it in front of others. There is no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. No one can guarantee that all the officials in the Taiji Palace are working together with your Majesty. Once the gunpowder is leaked, with this kid's previous example of bombing the 7 Cultivators sect, all the other forces will definitely covet the gunpowder and send all kinds of spies to find out the formula. Once they find out the formula, it will definitely be a disaster for the Tang Empire's army. After all, gunpowder is a double-edged sword. It can hurt others and also hurt oneself. This is a serious matter, so I have to be careful. That's why I lied in the imperial court just now. I hope your Majesty can forgive me." Li Er's expression turned cold. When Li Zixuan said this, he instantly thought of many bad things. At present, the Tang Empire had just been established, and Li Er had only been in power for less than a year. His control of the Tang Empire had not reached the point where he could sit back and relax. Aristocratic families, external enemies, internal troubles, external troubles. These were all unstable factors hidden in the dark. If he was careless, he might lose the whole game. Not bad. I'm very pleased that you can think of these things. Li Zixuan, you didn't disappoint me. After a long time, Li Er sighed. His expression gradually softened as he looked at Li Zixuan and said, Chapter 547. In the Ganlu Palace. It was rare for Li Zixuan to hear Li Er speak human language. He couldn't help but feel a little better. Wasn't he working so hard for the sake of Great Tang? Thank you for your praise, your Majesty. In addition to what I said earlier, I also believe that Great Tang doesn't need gunpowder at all. What do you mean? Li Er asked with some confusion. Li Zixuan stood with his hands behind his back and said, Your Majesty, Great Tang's army is full of valiant generals and high morale. What we lack now is not combat power, but the country needs to rest and recuperate. Once the people are rich and the treasury is full, the Turks in the north will be wiped out. Gunpowder is just icing on the cake. It's not the key to victory. Currently, gunpowder may be useful for defending a city, but for attacking, once the other party spreads the cavalry, gunpowder won't be effective. On the contrary, once gunpowder is used in war, we have to be prepared for other people to research gunpowder and use it on us. I feel that the gains don't make up for the losses. Although they had gunpowder now, gunpowder and cannons were two different things. If they wanted to make cannons for attacking, they still needed to solve many technical problems. Unless they were like Li Zixuan, who used a fighter jet to bomb the 7 cultivators of Virtue sect, gunpowder would have a limited effect in war. Moreover, if someone secretly learned the gunpowder formula, it would be really troublesome. Li Er shook his head and said, Although what you said is reasonable, how can I give up eating for fear of choking? The power of gunpowder is beyond doubt. I believe that as long as we keep it a secret, there won't be a problem. As for how to use gunpowder for attacking, didn't you already do it yesterday? It seems that Li Er also wants to use yesterday's bombing of the 7 cultivators of virtue. Li Zishuan quickly shook his head and said, Your Majesty, this is not the same. For the time being, this subject will call the mountaineering tool the celestial lamp. Although the celestial lamp can fly hundreds of feet high in the sky, its flying direction is completely dependent on the direction of the wind. Wherever the wind blows, it will follow, just like a sailboat on the sea. The situation on the battlefield changes rapidly. How can we pin our hopes on the unreliable direction of the wind? Li Er asked doubtfully. Then how did you do it last night? I remember that it wasn't a southwest wind last night. Li Zishuan said awkwardly. Your Majesty, I used my true qi to forcefully change the direction of the celestial lamp last night. I'm afraid it's very difficult for people below the guru level to achieve this. Li Er was speechless. The 7 cultivators of true virtue is truly unlucky to have provoked you, brat. Li Zishuan awkwardly smiled and stood there without saying anything. A man can't be a man if he doesn't take revenge. If there is someone to blame, then blame the people from the 7 cultivators of true virtue for provoking him. Li Er clasped his hands behind his back and walked 2 steps. Suddenly, he asked meaningfully, There must be other reasons besides the ones you just mentioned, right? With that, he stared into Li Zishuan's eyes with a faint smile, waiting for an answer. A few drops of sweat suddenly appeared on Li Zishuan's forehead. It was said that the emperor was very suspicious, and Li Zishuan was no exception. How should he explain this? Brat, even if you don't say it, I already know. You didn't dare to tell the truth in the imperial court because you were afraid that I would feel that you were too big of a threat and suspect you, right? Li Er saw Li Zishuan struggling and unable to say anything. He laughed loudly and walked over. Sizing up Li Zishuan, he said, You don't need to quibble. That's what you were thinking at the time. I remember telling you before that under my command. You can use as many talents as you want. Although the situation with the gunpowder is very special, I still know what kind of temperament you have, brat. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let you live until today because of what you did. Li Er's face turned slightly cold as he finished speaking. Li Zishuan was silent. He secretly thought that Li Er had his reasons for becoming an eternal emperor. His vision and breadth of mind were things that many emperors didn't have. After a long while, Li Zishuan faintly sighed and cupped his hands. Thank you for your trust, Your Majesty. I don't have any great ambitions in this life. I just want to lie at home and live a leisurely life with my wife and parents. I don't want to participate in these disputes. Of course, I also hope that Tang Empire is infinitely powerful. It's best if it's so powerful that no one dares to provoke us. Then, I can peacefully enjoy my life at home. Li Er glanced at him and snorted. Useless. Wait until you help me develop Tang Empire to a point where no one dares to provoke us. Then we can talk about enjoying your life. Li Zishuan smiled and said, Your Majesty, contentment brings joy. What is being successful and not being successful? Anyway, I'm very satisfied with my current life. Don't I still have Your Majesty to worry about other things? Li Zishuan's words were sincere. He wouldn't exchange his current lifestyle, even if he was given the title of emperor. Didn't you see how Li Er, the emperor, was so busy every day that his feet didn't touch the ground and was even criticized by the haters? It was really tough. How could it be as comfortable as him hugging his wife? Brat, according to what you said, you don't even care about my throne now? Li Er said with some dissatisfaction. If it were anyone else who heard this, they would definitely be scared half to death. However, after having a heart-to-heart talk with Li Er today, Li Zishuan had a better understanding of old Li's personality. He wasn't afraid and just said casually, I didn't say that. I don't care about my position. I don't care about politics. I just want to be a good son and a good husband. I don't care about other things. Hell, you brat. Li Er pointed at Li Zishuan and then walked back to the table and sat down. Li Zishuan felt that today's conversation was about done. He felt around his chest and took out a small piece of paper. He stepped forward and handed it to Li Er. Your Majesty, This is the formula for gunpowder. Forgive me for speaking out of turn, but this formula must be kept a secret. Moreover, if your majesty really wants to make gunpowder, you must not do it in the bustling areas of Chang'an. Once an accident occurs, not only will it alarm those with ill intentions, it will also cause a large number of innocent casualties. Lier stared at the small piece of paper, and his face slightly flushed. He didn't take it and instead asked, "You handed over such an important thing so easily?" Lisa Xuan said seriously, "Your Majesty, as I said before, I don't have any great ambitions. If it wasn't for the 7 cultivators sect forcing me into a corner, I wouldn't have used gunpowder. Now that I've made gunpowder, this national treasure should be handed over to your Majesty for safekeeping. I can't think of any use for it." "Good. Immortal lamp, gunpowder. Don't worry, since you took the initiative to offer these 2 things, I won't treat you unfairly." Lier took the small piece of paper and said in a deep voice. Lisa Xuan cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, your Majesty. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Go." Chapter 548. More than an hour ago, in a private room of the Junware restaurant. Inside, there were 5 young masters who were dressed luxuriously and had extraordinary appearances. Their nobility and elegance were clearly not something that could be nurtured by a poor family. The 5 of them sat opposite each other and did not deliberately maintain the order of the seats. Among them, the young man named Xianji said, Lisa Xuan first flattened the price of books, and then he launched the dictionary of the Tang Dynasty. Such actions are tantamount to digging at the foundation of the Shandong landowning clans. I believe that all the brothers present can see this. Xianji is right. Since the establishment of the Li Tang Dynasty, the Shandong gentry have been suppressed repeatedly and have long lost their former glory. Now we have to pay attention to the actions of this Li Xianji. He is shaking the prestige of our families in the scholarly circle. A slightly older man sitting next to Xianji took over the conversation. How can a small dictionary shake the foundation of the Shandong gentry? Chui Xuanji, Chui Shun, when have the people of the Chui family of Qinghe and the Chui family of Bowling been so timid? Hearing these 2 people talking, the handsome young man sitting on the outside sneered discontentedly. It turned out that the people sitting in this room today were all outstanding representatives of the 5 surnames and 7 hopes. Chui Xuanji of the Chui family of Qinghe, Chui Shun of the Chui family of Bowling, Zheng Huaiji of the Zheng family of Xingyang, Lu Chengqing of the Lu family of Fanyang, and Li Jingxian of the Li family of Zhao County. Now 5 of the 5 surnames and 7 hopes were here. The Li family of Longxi and the Wang family of Taiyuan were not here. To be able to be chosen as the representative of each family, these people naturally had their own outstanding aspects. Right now, perhaps they were still not well known because Li Yuan and Li Er, these 2 generations of emperors, were doing their best to suppress the Shandong landowning households. After a few more years, many of them would stand out in the court. For example, Lu Changqing, who was the prime minister during the Gaozong period, Chui Shen. Although this person did not have many achievements in the officialdom, he later had a very powerful son named Chui Xuanji. This person also served as the prime minister during the Gaozong period. During the Wu Zhou period, in order to support the crown prince, Li Xian, to ascend the throne, he launched a coup and was conferred the title of prince. Zheng Huaijie today is different from the past. You and I have both seen the plight of the aristocratic families. The emperor's ambition is also clear as day. At this time, you still have high standards but little ability. Could it be that you will only wake up when we are all reduced to ordinary families? Chui Xuanji said with an ugly expression. You really have groundless fears. In any case, the Chui family was a rich and powerful family that had lasted for thousands of years. Even if the current emperor intended to weaken the aristocratic families, could he really do anything to the Chui family? It's true that our families are being suppressed now, but I think it's just because Li Tangchu and the Li family of Longxi want to raise the status of the Guanlong nobles. At this moment, we only need to lie low. When the crown prince takes the throne, we will definitely have more opportunities. Zheng Huaijie retorted somewhat disapprovingly. It had to be said that although this guy was a little arrogant, he had a good grasp of the overall situation. In China's history, aristocratic politics sprouted in the Eastern Han Dynasty and died at the end of the Tang Dynasty. Therefore, some people felt that the aristocratic family politics from the Eastern Han Dynasty, through the Wei, Jin, Southern and Northern dynasties, to the Sui and Tang dynasties, gradually weakened and died out following the disappearance of the two great privileges of the economic, occupying farmland shady guest system and the political 9 ranks of the emperor system, without any rebound. In fact, this was a great misunderstanding, because in terms of historical facts, in China's aristocratic politics era, there were 2 most glorious periods. One was the Weiji Northern and Southern dynasties, and the other was the Tang Dynasty. In the Tang Dynasty, especially in the middle and late Tang Dynasty, aristocratic politics didn't dim. On the contrary, it strangely became glorious again. At the beginning of the Tang Dynasty, the Shandong nobles were indeed greatly suppressed. First, the Guanlong military group still had a lot of power at that time. Second, the emperor deliberately suppressed them. Third, in the vigorously promoted imperial examination system, many ministers of the illegitimate family appeared. At that time, the 5 families were not used to this kind of official method. Fourth, the court officials who came from humble families were jealous. However, after Empress Wu came to power, on one hand, she suppressed the old ministers of the Guanlong nobles and eliminated political resistance. On the other hand, she began to use the Shandong nobles. For example, Li Jingxian, who came from the Li family of Zhao County, was recognized by Empress Wu at this time and walked into the center of power. After the Enlushan Rebellion, the political center of the Tang Dynasty was rebuilt. The power to suppress the nobles was no longer as fierce as it was under Li Yuan and Li Er. The 5 families also used the imperial examination system to rise up fiercely. For example, the Zheng family of Xingyang. During the Tang Dynasty, it was hard to find a prime minister. However, from the middle of the Tang Dynasty onwards, there were more than 10 prime ministers and important ministers. Another example would be the Cui family of Qinghe. In the Tang Dynasty, there were 10 people from the branch house, the South Ancestral Branch, the Qinghe Main Branch, the Qinghe Small Branch, and the Qingzhou Branch. Before the Enlushan Rebellion, there were only 2 people who were prime ministers. After the rebellion, 8 of them became prime ministers. The reason why the nobles of Shandong were able to rise again was because of the change in the attitude of those in power. Another reason was that after adapting to the imperial examination system, the profound family tradition and knowledge of the nobles gave them a special advantage in the imperial examination. For example, the Liu family of Fanyang had more than 100 people in the Tang Dynasty, especially from the middle of the Tang Dynasty onwards. This number was shocking. One must know that in the Tang Dynasty, the Jinshu examination was the most difficult. The number of people who were admitted was also very small. The Liu family was able to have such results because of their family traditions and knowledge. Therefore, if the nobles wanted to develop, they had to wait for the right time. Li Jingxian nodded and said, Xuanji, although Huaijie's words are offensive, they are not without reason. Right now, we should wait patiently and not take the initiative to cause trouble. However, Lu Qingqing frowned and said, Jingxian, you're wrong. Ever since Li Zixuan appeared in Chang, and the speed of his rise has left people dumbfounded. Everything that Qing Guanji has done seems to be deliberately going against us. Recently, I even heard that he wants to build some Yin Huang Academy and develop engineering. It's really absurd. Qing Guanji suspects that he is a tool that His Majesty arranged to suppress the nobles. The current situation is no different from boiling a frog in warm water. If we don't take action soon, sooner or later, our foundation will be nibbled away. If the Cui family wants to deal with Li Zixuan, the Liu family is willing to help. Cui Xuanji smiled and said, Brother Qingqing is really far-sighted and righteous. Then he turned to Zheng Huaijie and Li Jingxian and said, Brother Zheng, Brother Li, time waits for no man. If Li Zishuan is allowed to do as he pleases, the situation of our families will be even more worrying. Please reconsider carefully. Cui Shin chimed in. Huaijie, Jingxian, I believe that with your foresight, you can't see Li Zishuan's threat. Please consider the big picture. In the current situation, 3 out of the 5 families had formed a united front. Hesitation appeared on Li Jingshuan's face. After a while, he stood up and said, in that case, the Li family of Zhao County is also willing to help. However, this is a serious matter. Jingxian will have to discuss it with my father. Of course, of course. Cui Xuanji smiled and nodded with a hint of joy. Chapter 549. After Li Jingxian agreed to join the temporary alliance, everyone looked at Zheng Huaijie again. It was no longer about Li Zishuan, but whether the Zheng family still wanted to play with the other 4 major families in the future. Zheng Huaijie wasn't stupid. He could also figure out the crux of the matter. A moment later, he waved his hand in annoyance and said, Fine, fine, fine. Do whatever you want. But our Zheng family is only responsible for providing the money, not the manpower. Good, good, good. Cui Xuanji was overjoyed. He was about to say something when someone knocked on the door. Young master, I have something important to report. The atmosphere in the room was stifling. Logically speaking, no servant would come and disturb such an important meeting. Apart from Li Jingxian, the other 4 people all had anger on their faces. Li Jingxian hurriedly said, please don't blame him. I'll go out and teach him a lesson right now. It's okay. It's okay. Although everyone was a little displeased, the good education they had received since they were young still made them not speak ill of him, and they all expressed that they did not mind. Li Jingxian cupped his hands, opened the door, and walked out. After half an hour, Li Jingxian returned to the room, but he looked a little upset. When everyone was about to ask him, Li Jingxian cupped his hands and said, Sorry, everyone. Everyone, I'm very sorry. Something urgent has cropped up in Jingshuan's family, so he can't stay here any longer. Also, Xianji, the Li family of Zhao County will no longer be involved in the matter of Li Zishuan. Just pretend that Jingxian never came here today. Goodbye. Then, Li Jingxian left without waiting for everyone to recover from the shock. Hey. Brother Li, please wait. What on earth happened? Cui Xuanji was stunned for a while, but Li Jingxian was nowhere to be seen. Xuanji, forget it. Since Jingxian is not willing, we can't force him. Cui Shin walked over and patted Cui Xuanji's shoulder. That's the only way, but fortunately, there are still 4 of us. This time, we will definitely ruin Li Zishuan's reputation. Cui Xuanji sighed regretfully. Just as he finished speaking, there was an urgent knock on the door. Young master, bad news. I have something important to report. It was almost the same tone and the same words. Everyone couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. Zheng Huaijie stood up, cupped his hands, and apologized. Then, he hurried out of the door. After a while, Zheng Huaijie walked in with an embarrassed face and said quickly, I'm sorry, everyone. I have something urgent to deal with at home. The Zheng family of Xingyang won't be involved in the fight against Li Zishuan. Goodbye. The 3 people in the room were stunned. In less than a quarter of an hour, 2 out of the 5 alliances had withdrawn. Such a fragile alliance was ironic. Cui Xuanji's face alternated between green and white. He was the one who hosted today's meeting. Now that things had turned out this way, it was a slap to his face, a slap to the Cui family's face. However, Li Jingxian and Zheng Huaijie had left in a hurry, and Cui Xuanji had nowhere to vent his anger. He was both frustrated and confused. Bam! 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 Young master. Bad news. Bad news. I have something important to report. As soon as Zheng Huaijie left, there was a series of hurried knocks on the door. Lu Qingqing looked at Cui Xuanji and Cui Shen helplessly and walked out without saying anything. Half an hour later, Lu Qingqing walked in with a solemn face. Just as he was about to speak, Cui Xuanji interrupted him. Brother Lu, is the Zheng family of Xingyang also withdrawing? What exactly happened? Can you tell me first? Lu Qingqing said awkwardly. Ahem. Xuanji, something big has happened. You should receive the news soon. I'll take my leave first. The Lu family will also not be involved in the fight against Li Zishuan. After that, he ignored Cui Xuanji's dissuasion and left. Cui Xuanji looked at Cui Shen anxiously and said, Cousin, what should we do now? Why did they go back on their words in the blink of an eye? During the Western Zhou Dynasty, the son of Duke Ding of Qi, Jizi, gave the country to Shui while he himself took advantage of Cui Yi. After Jizi gave the country away, he was conferred the title of Cui Minister and took Cui Yi as his surname. Ever since Jizi was conferred the title of Cui Yi, the Cui family began its own development process. After entering the Sui and Tang dynasties, according to the new Tang dynasty, the Cui family had 10 houses. The first was Zhengzhou, the second was Yanling, the third was Nanzhou, the fourth was Qinghe Big House, the fifth was Qinghe Small House, the sixth was Qinghe Qingzhou House, the seventh was Bowling and Bungalow, the eighth was Bowling Big House, the ninth was Bowling Second House, and the 10th was Bowling Third House. The first 6 houses belonged to the Qinghe Cui family, and the last 4 houses belonged to the Bowling Cui family. The 2 Cui families came from the same family, and had always maintained a close relationship. That was why Cui Xuanji called Cui Shen his cousin. Cui Shen frowned and said, Xuanji, there must be something we don't know about. Send someone out to find out if something big has happened. Cui Xuanji nodded and said, Yes, cousin. Bam, bam, bam. Bad news, young master. I come in. At this time, a series of equally urgent knocks came from outside the house. Cui Xuanji's expression changed, and he shouted before the servant outside the house could finish speaking. Squeak! A young servant in green clothes and a green hat came in from outside the room. He looked strong and powerful. Wu Jia, hurry up and tell me what happened. Cui Xuanji walked quickly to the servant and asked in a deep voice, Humph, young master, Li. Wu Jia was about to speak when he saw Cui Shen next to him. He hesitated and didn't know if he should continue. Tell me. Cui Xuanji frowned and shouted. Yes, 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 young master. I just received news that Li Zishuan, who disappeared for 3 days, has returned. Last night, the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect was razed to the ground and wiped out. That 7-headed snake was also killed by Li Zishuan, and its corpse is hanging in front of the Li family's door for public display. Wu Jia no longer hesitated and told him everything he had found out. Boom! Cui Xuanji's mind went blank. He staggered 2 steps back and murmured, Impossible! Impossible! I've never heard of the Imperial Army launching an attack on the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect recently. Even if they did, it's impossible to take them down in such a short time. This must be a rumor. Wu Jie said with a bitter face, Young master, I saw everything with my own eyes. Li Zishuan just pointed at the 7-headed snake and told the people that if anyone wants to harm his family, no matter how powerful they are, they will be killed just like the 7-headed snake. Even if he has to chase them to the ends of the earth, he will kill them. Cui Xuanji roared angrily at his words. Damn it, they've gone too far. Chapter 550. Huh, come. We brothers have been on the battlefield together. Let's not go home until we're drunk. Drunk in a mortal restaurant, heaven, private room. Li Zishuan, Cheng Chumo, Yuchi Baolin, Dugu Ixin, and Dugu Fing sat around a table full of delicacies, drinking to their heart's content. Li Zishuan was supposed to treat Dugu Xian and Dugu Feiying to this meal. Earlier, when the Snake King tried to kill him outside Chong and City, the 2 brothers had saved him in time. A few days ago, when they attacked Snake Spirit Mountain for the first time, Dugu Xian and Dugu Feiying had also helped him a lot. If not for their extraordinary performance, he would not have been able to defeat Yin Batian alone, and the Imperial Army would have suffered more casualties that day. Therefore, when Li Zixuan returned from the imperial court, the first thing he did was to ask someone to invite the two brothers over. They had helped him so much. Logically speaking, it wasn't too much to treat them to a meal. Although Cheng Chumo was only an observer during the attack on Snake Spirit Mountain, he felt that he had helped. When he heard that Li Zixuan was treating him to a meal, he quickly brought Yuchi Baolan along for the meal. When he heard Li Zixuan say that they would not leave until they were drunk, Cheng Chumo laughed proudly. "Heh, who's afraid of you? Xiao Xian, you've only learned how to drink for a few months. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Ha ha ha." Li Zixuan rolled his eyes. "I wonder who was the one who got drunk and fell under the table on my wedding day." Cheng Chumo's face turned red, and he said unhappily, "Chow, that's because you cheated. Later, I finally remembered. You let the four of us drink in the front while you secretly hid at the back. Otherwise, you would have been the one who fell first." "Huh, looks like this kid is not stupid." Dugu Feng looked at the wine in front of him, took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and said in enjoyment, "Ha ha, I don't care who's better at drinking, as long as I have good wine to drink." After saying that, he picked up the wine cup and took a sip. "Huh, good wine. After drinking so much, little Xian, your drunken immortal is still the best. How satisfying. Awesome." The moment the drunken immortal entered his mouth, that spicy and domineering feeling ignited a ball of fire in his heart. Dugu Feng recalled the sweet taste in his mouth and said in a slightly intoxicated manner. Dugu Xin frowned. "Feng, don't be rude." The host hadn't even touched his chopsticks, but the guest had already started eating. This was an extremely rude behavior, whether it was in ancient times or modern times. Li Zixuan waved his hand and laughed. "We are all good brothers. Why are you so particular about that?" Xin, it's not that I want to scold you, but can't you smile more? It's easy to get depression if you put on a cold face every day. What is depression? Dugu Xin was taken aback as he asked. "Ugh." Li Zixuan scratched his head and said, "Depression. Depression is a prolonged period of depression. The patient's depression can range from melancholy to grief, inferiority complex, pessimistic, and even suicidal attempts or behaviors." Dugu Feng was startled and quickly asked, "Big brother, you don't have these symptoms, right? Don't take it too hard." Dugu Xin angrily slapped his unreliable younger brother and said while vomiting blood, "No." Then, he seemed to feel that these two words weren't very convincing. So he added, "I'm just not willing to talk a lot of the time, not because I'm depressed. Last night, I witnessed the destruction of the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect at the foot of the mountain. Seeing my brothers get their revenge, I'm still very happy. Little Xian, although I don't know how you destroyed the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect, I, Dugu Xin, am grateful to you from the bottom of my heart. Because of your actions, we were able to avenge our brothers without shedding any blood." After saying that, he raised his wine glass with both hands and said solemnly, "Let me toast you." Li Zixuan nodded and didn't say anything else. He raised his glass and drank it in one gulp. Then he said, "We fought side by side for so many times, and we're already brothers. There's no need to thank me. Besides, those brothers died because of me, so I have to avenge them personally. Yes, yes, yes. We're all brothers, so there's no need to be so polite. Come, come, let's drink together." Cheng Chumo stood up and laughed. "Drink. The reason it's drink, and not cheers, is because the word cheers hasn't appeared yet. The English word cheers originated in Ireland in the 16th century, and it originally meant toast. At that time, Irish drunkards had the habit of putting a piece of toast into a glass of whiskey or beer to improve the taste and remove the impurities. It was only in the 18th century that the word cheers took on the meaning it has today, and it developed into a congratulatory eulogy. After downing another glass of wine, everyone's faces were a little red. After all, this was the strongest drunken immortal. Yuchi Baolan wiped his mouth, looked at Li Zixuan, and asked, "Little Xian, last night, Chonyo and I happened to see you sitting on a fireball and flying to the top of the Snake Spirit Mountain. What was that thing? How could it fly so high?" When the Duga brothers heard that, They quickly looked at Li Zixuan curiously. They had come out to observe the situation after hearing the explosion at the top of the mountain last night. They weren't like Cheng Chumo and Yuchi Baolin, who had brushed shoulders with Li Zixuan's fairy lamp. Therefore, when they heard that Li Zixuan had flown to the top of the mountain, they were very shocked. As for Cheng Chumo, when he heard Yuchi Baolin mention last night's incident, his expression became a little unnatural. This fellow had clearly thought of the fairy joke. Hearing those words, Li Zixuan thought for a moment. Everyone present was the second generation of the military, so it was unlikely that they would commit treason. Thus, he told them about the celestial lamp and the iron ball made of Jinchi. As for the gunpowder, it was currently a top secret of the great Tang, so he could not reveal it to them. F***CK. There's actually a tool in this world that can allow one to fly. This is too magical. Little Xian, can we go to your house and take a look at that fairy lamp later? After hearing Li Zixuan's story, Dugu Feiying's eyes widened, and he slammed the table excitedly. Even though he could use his qigong to jump a few meters high, a few meters and a few hundred meters were two completely different things. Okay? The fairy lamp was a heaven-defying tool, and any man would want to experience that thrill. I want to go and take a look too, right? Little Xian, do you still have the true chi steel ball that your master left for you? You're so skilled in martial arts, so you probably don't need it anymore, right? Give me 2 of them. Cheng Chumo stretched out his hand and said with a smile. Li Zixuan said angrily, "Give your head. It's gone." "Ah, why is it gone?" Chapter 551. Oh, that's right. Feiying, Xian, did you two improve your martial arts in the previous battle? Li Zixuan suddenly asked after drinking for a while. He clearly remembered that when they first attacked the Snake Spirit Mountain, the 3 of them joined forces to deal with Batian, who was at the peak of Grandmaster. Due to the gap in their realms, they were at a disadvantage at first, and Dugu Feiying was almost killed several times. However, he took advantage of the opportunity created by Li Zixuan and Dugu Xian to injure Batian with 3 throwing knives, which really blinded everyone. Later, Batian risked everything to kill Dugu Feiying first, and he used the first 6 swords of the Taishian 9 swords to save him. Dugu Xian also used a series of complicated swordsmanship to save Dugu Feiying, and his speed was only a little slower than his own. In the end, the 2 of them stabbed Batian one after another, severely injuring him. Such a battle record and such strength would definitely not appear in the battle against the Snake King in the eastern suburbs, which was why Li Zixuan asked. Dugu Feiying said excitedly, "Yes, that was the first time I fought a grandmaster outside the city. After I went back, I learned a lot, and the last time I was at the Snake Spirit Mountain, I learned something again, and that's how I injured Batian. Hey, I feel that my Xuanya throwing knives is about to reach the small success level. Am I right, big brother?" Dugu Xian nodded and said, "Yes, you've improved a lot. Although it's a narrow escape from death, it's also the fastest way to improve one's strength. Only between life and death can one achieve great things. First, we fought the Snake King, and then we fought the more powerful Batian. After these 2 battles, I feel that my lonely wind swordsmanship is about to reach the 6th sword." Cheng Chumo looked at the 2 of them enviously, and he was annoyed that he didn't get to experience such a hot-blooded situation. Li Zixuan asked curiously, "Lonely wind swordsmanship? Is that the Dugu family's swordsmanship?" It was no wonder that he asked. Although he had a powerful master, he didn't know much about the martial arts names in Jianghu. Besides, in this era, Jianghu was still in its infancy, and there weren't many well-known martial arts techniques. Most martial artists' martial arts techniques were passed down from their families. Dugu Xian nodded and said, "It is indeed the Dugu family's swordsmanship." Feiying didn't like that since he was young. He found a book of throwing knives and swordsmanship from some corner of the family storehouse, and he's been practicing until now. Li Zixuan nodded thoughtfully and asked, "Xian, you said that you're about to reach the 6th sword. How many sword moves does this lonely wind sword art have in total? If someone else had asked this question, Dugu Xian would definitely have given them the cold shoulder. After all, this sword technique was unique to the Dugu family and was not taught to outsiders. However, the person who asked this question was Lisa Xuan. He thought for a moment and answered, there are a total of 9 sword moves. I can only use the first 5 moves now, but I feel that I have already touched the threshold of the 6th move. 9 swordsmanship moves? Lisa Xuan was startled when he heard this, and his expression suddenly became strange. Dugu Feng didn't understand and asked curiously, "What's with your expression, Xiao Xian? My brother is already very powerful to be able to practice the 5th sword. Okay, my dad is only at the 6th sword." Lisa Xuan knew that this guy misunderstood. He quickly waved his hand and said, "I don't mean anything else. I just thought of another swordsmanship. It also has 9 sword moves." Dugu Feng snorted and said, "There are many swordsmanship with 9 sword moves in this world. What's so strange about that?" "Yeah, Xiao Xian, doesn't your Tai Xian 9 swords also have 9 sword moves?" Cheng Chumo, who had been with Lisa Xuan for the longest time, knew the most about the situation. He also interrupted. Lisa Xuan shook his head and said, "No, the swordsmanship I thought of is called Dugu 9 swords." Dugu 9 swords? Everyone couldn't help but exclaim in unison. Then, everyone's expression became strange. Dugu Xian couldn't help but say, "I've never seen this swordsmanship in my family, but from a name, it seems to be related to my Dugu family. Xiao Xian, tell me, where did this Dugu 9 swords come from?" Lisa Xuan was secretly amused. "Of course, you haven't seen this swordsmanship before. This is a divine skill from Old Master Jin's novel. Where did you see it?" Actually, the reason why he mentioned the 9 swords beyond the swords was because Dugu Xian's words had coincidentally reminded him of the smiling, proud wanderer from his previous life. The other reason was that he had transmigrated to the Tang Dynasty, and he had mysteriously acquired martial arts. With his current martial arts realm and comprehension, some of the moves in Old Man Jin's novel seemed to make some sense, and it was worth pondering over. Lisa Xuan used his powerful spiritual power to recall a little, then answered, "I heard from my master that this Dugu 9 swords was created by a senior who was known as the Sword Demon. He defeated all his enemies, defeated all his heroes, and defeated all his opponents. He was invincible in the world. The Sword Demon wanted an opponent who could make him defend himself with 1 move, but he couldn't get it. In the end, he buried his sword in an empty valley and died. He also had another name, Dugu Qiubai." When the other 4 heard this, their eyes widened in shock. Dugu Feng exclaimed, "Dugu Qiubai? That name is so domineering. There's actually such a strange person in the world. Then this Dugu 9 swords must be very powerful, right?" Lisa Xuan smiled and said, "Of course. Dugu 9 swords has a total of 9 moves. Ultimate move, breaking sword move, breaking knife move, breaking spear move, breaking whip move, breaking rope move, breaking palm move, breaking arrow move, and breaking chi move. The Dugu 9 swords is the extreme of swordsmanship. There are a total of 360 variations, and it only attacks and does not defend. When you understand the sword intent of these 9 swords, there is nothing you cannot do, nothing you cannot come out of, and nothing you cannot enter." "Damn, that's awesome. Xiao Xian, do you have this sword manual? If you do, I'll practice this instead of the horse lance in the future," Cheng Chumo said with a hopeful face, drooling. Dugu Xian stood up and cupped his fist solemnly. "Xiao Xian, this Dugu 9 swords is very similar to our Dugu family's solitary wind swordsmanship. If you have this sword manual, our Dugu family is willing to pay any price to exchange it. Please help us." Seeing Dugu Xian's solemn face, Dugu Feng also stood up and cupped his fists. "Xiao Xian, please." Lisa Xuan hurriedly waved his hand and said, Xian, Feng, sit down first." Sit down. But sit down first. Otherwise, I won't say anything." "All right." After they all sat down, Lisa Xuan said, "I've only heard about this Dugu 9 sword from my master. I don't have the sword manual, but I can roughly remember the essentials of each move. I'll tell you in detail when I have time in the future. When he heard Li Zixuan say that he did not have the sword manual, Dugu Xian was initially disappointed. But when he heard the last sentence, he was instantly excited. He quickly said, Okay. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.